Ooh, what's up, Internet? My name's Nerdy, and this is the Nerdy, the Wordy, the Book Club. That's right, I am currently live by myself here at the Nerdy Wordy Book Club talking about Will of the Many, Part 1. This is weird. Hey, everyone. This is a new thing. So basically what happened was I was just scrolling through Audible and I had a bunch of credits and I was like, hey, you know, I'm just gonna pick something up, something that looks interesting. And I've been hearing about Will of the Many for a long time. And the cover was interesting. I read the premise. I was like, what is going on here? Why is this so Latin? Very odd. But I was like, let's do it. And so I started listening to it. I got about 4 chapters in and I was like, oh, I need to talk about this with someone. And Clarisse doesn't want to add books to her life right now. She has enough stuff going on. And so I went in and I was like, hey, I'm going to do a book club on it by myself. We've been talking about baby book clubs. I don't know that this is going to be a baby book club because it's not a one book in like one video kind of video. This is going to be a full book club. We're doing 3 videos every Wednesday for the next 3 weeks. We're going to be live. Today's part 1. Next week will be part 2. And then we'll finish the book off the following week before we do our couples book club for Onyx Storm on that 4th Wednesday. So thank you for everyone who's here. If you are like, I only really like you when Clarisse is next to you, I get it. I understand. If you are like, I only really like shows where nerdy is a little less political, I also understand that. This is not going to be one of those shows. I don't know how to talk about this book without getting deeply into some political ideals because James Islington, I hope I'm saying his name right, his writing is a direct stab at the concept of America itself. And I can't wait to get into how beautifully he's portraying that in a book that a third of the way through I love. I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm having a blast. I think it is very good. I think that it is very well written. The first person point of view writing of it took me a second to get into, but once I felt the vibe, once I got past some of the names, I found this book to be just absolutely mesmerizing in the way that it is tackling criticism of capitalism and also just building a narrative around a magic system that is itself the problem, right? It is such a beautiful idea that is horrifying and awful and terrible and all of those things, but executed so well by James Islington. So we're going to talk about that today. I want to say thank you to everyone who's here in the live chat. We had a super chat before we were even live today. So I just want to say Jabroni006, thank you for that super chat. I work nights, so sorry I can't be here, but I am very excited for this discussion. I am so grateful to you for that. Thanks for popping in the chat. Thank you to everyone who's been in the chat since before we were live. Jared Poulter finished the chapters this morning. They're enjoying it so far. I agree. Arzu, our mod and the commissioner of this week's reactions. Thank you for commissioning 2 different chapters this week, Arzu. Says, reading Lacanius now, and so far it's all the Wheel of Time, but complete that sentence in 16 different ways. I'm assuming Lacanius is his other series, which I have not read. This is the first James Islington book I've read. Shark89 says, I've never been around for a live book club. Welcome to live book club. We do it a little different live because I will read your name out loud. And yeah. What else is going on here? Kano, thank you for that super chat. Kano also commissioned some upcoming reactions to this book, so I hope that you guys enjoy those. Those are for members and YouTube patrons only, so remember, you gotta get a membership somewhere if you want to catch the commissioned reactions. The reason for that is that they absolutely crush the algorithm on the channel. Because, the fewer people want to watch a commissioned reaction alongside us. So we had to find a way to put them up here without it being a detriment to the channel's existence. YouTube makes it really easy. But I also find the member sections are a lovely place. And I thank everyone who is a member of our channels. It really makes the world spin for us. And we are working on buying a house. And that's because of y'all. I am very aware of the fact that everything I have is because of y'all. So I'm very grateful. Yeah, Blue says there are only 9 chapters in, so I might dip out when you get to that point. Absolutely, Blue. Dip out. I don't want to spoil it. The end of part 1 is fantastic. I did not see it coming at all, mostly because the book does not tell you that it's coming at all. I don't think it's foreshadowed. I think it is very intentionally what it is, and we'll talk about it when we get there so I don't spoil Blue. Lacanius is his completed trilogy. Interesting. Cool. Sir Jimmers, what's up, Sir Jimmers? Good morning. Hey, Nerdy. Came to say hi. I'm eventually reading this book, but haven't had time yet, so I'll be skipping this one. Have a great book club, y'all. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So, I want to talk really quickly before we get into the actual discussion of the book today about how we are nominated for a Crit Award. That's right. You can go over to the Crit Awards and you can vote for us to hopefully win Best Charity Event that is going to be coming at the end of July, but you can only vote, I think, until the end of the week. So if you have not yet, go over to the Crit Awards. I don't think I linked it in this video description. Sorry about that. I should have done that. But we're nominated, and we would really like to win. We think that Heroes Without Borders last year, we raised over $17,000 for Doctors Without Borders, was an incredible event. We were so lucky to have the sponsors that we did and the other guests and players that we did. And we are hoping to win that so that we can spin that into an even bigger event this year. That is right. Heroes Without Borders 2 is coming in November, December. We already have the idea sketched out. This year it's going to be 40 players and it's going to be 10 sessions. It's going to be a massive, massive thing. I'm so excited to bring that over on the Roleplay Relay. And yeah, winning the award, I think, would just being able to put like a badge of like, this is an award-winning charity show, I think would help us particularly get sponsors for the event. We want to have more matching donations this year. We want to have more of, we're hoping to get like a kickoff donation from a company. And, you know, those kind of accolades, even if the company doesn't maybe know what the Crit Awards are, just hearing that it is an award-winning charity event gives us a lot of ability to make moves in the space. And at the end of the day, it's always about the charity, right? I'm just kind of doing everything I can to make the charity events bigger and better for the future so we can do more good so that this community can continue to be the positive force that I think that we have always been, and the way that we bring people together, but also the way that we focus our attention outwards and try and help people as much as we can. That having been said, if you haven't voted, please do. If you don't want to, that's fine too. Let's talk about Will of the Many. Clarus is not here. I have no one to throw to. I just have to talk. I just have to talk for 3 hours. This might not be 3 hours, chat. It is me by myself. One of the reasons why book club is so long is because Clarus pushes back on my ideas, and then I feel the need to justify my ideas deeper to her, and then you guys push back on my ideas, and then I feel the need to justify my ideas to you. She does the same thing, and it can stretch conversations out because there's a need for a back and forth that just might not exist today, because I can just say whatever I want and no one can stop me. No one can no one can tell me I'm wrong. Fino says, I mean, they deserve to be pushed back. Okay, fine, Fino. Maybe they do. Maybe they do sometimes. I think I have some good ideas sometimes, though. Arzu, the second book of this is out, isn't it? Is the second book of this not out yet? Damn, I was hoping to do it in August. All right. Anyway, I guess we're waiting till November for book 2, so we will book club that when it comes out. Maybe I'll get Claris to catch up by then, and she'll join me for those. But let's talk about Will of the Many. Will of the Many is a book by James Islington, I think is how you pronounce his name. It might be Islington. He is an author who previously penned the Lacanius trilogy. So this is a man who knows how to finish a book series. Thank God. Because I don't want this book to end up sitting struggling with the winds of winter. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, chat? It is a novel about a young boy named Vis, a prince of a kingdom that has been subsumed into the hierarchy, which is a empire that is basically the only superpowered empire. They have the ability to cede Will up a chain of command to give their officers and lieutenants, governors, senators incredible powers that have allowed them to win war after war after war, taking many countries and just sort of combining them all into what is now known as the hierarchy, the capital of which is Catan. You could say they are the settlers of Catan. And they are a awful place that is so directly a criticism of late stage capitalism that it is hard not to compare nearly everything that happens in this book to the modern world. Events that we will talk about later in these chapters. There is such a stark criticism of the modern life in a way that is handled through fantasy without feeling ham-fisted. One of the things I think is so spectacular about James Islington's writing here is that I understand on an intellectual level as I'm reading this book that he is pointing his fingers out of the book towards the audience and towards the world that we live in, right? He is looking at us through the pages and through Vis and through Catan and through the hierarchy. But I never felt like I was being spoken to through the fourth wall. And I think it's such an impressive tightrope that he walks, especially throughout this whole first part, that is dense. It's very exposition heavy. There's names that I am never going to remember. I could read this book 1,000 times, and I am never going to be able to tell you which Magnus Quintus is which Magnus Quintus, right? But through all of that, there is a comparison that is going on without feeling like it is being forced upon me. The world is so natural and it exists within its own rules so well that the criticism of our world is a natural one and not something that he ever needs to elucidate. He never needs to break the fourth wall for me to get the point because he is so good at making his point chapter by chapter by chapter. And so I found it to just be a really exhilarating read. Even though there are times, especially in the first 4 or 5 chapters, where there was a part of my brain that wanted to stop reading because the language and the Latinisms and the names, genuinely, I was like, I don't know that I can do this. I don't know that I have the brain power to try and understand this, right? And the reality of it is that I got past that. Once I felt like I understood it a little bit, really by like chapter 7 or 8, I truly felt like I was in a place with this book where I was just riveted and along for the ride. And to me, you know, I think that is faster than a book needs to catch me. You don't always have to have me by chapter 8. But the fact that a book this dense was able to capture me by chapter 8, I think is the reason why we're doing this book club, right? That is the reason why I felt like I needed to talk about this online, talk about this with the audience, with you guys, talk about this with anybody who wants to talk about it. Because it really is a smart book. Like it is a high intelligence book. Partially because if you're struggling with the chapter numbers, which are in Roman numerals, this one's going to be a lot for you. You know what I mean? This one leans really hard on some Roman inspirations. There are people in the chat saying that it gave them Warbreaker vibes. I find that really fascinating. Because Warbreaker is so... It's hard not to talk about this without spoiling Brandon Sanderson's book. And so I don't want to talk about Warbreaker too much. If you want to know my thoughts on Warbreaker, you can find that out. I think the difference between this and Warbreaker, and the reason why Warbreaker, I think, fails in criticizing capitalism, is that Warbreaker doesn't have the understanding of its system of governance down. It is so focused on the deific element of its magic system, right? It is so focused on these individuals. And the hierarchy is not that, right? The hierarchy has individuals in it who are very powerful, but it also has middle managers who are very powerful. It has office managers who are very powerful. It understands the hierarchical system of a society. Obviously, it's called the Hierarchy series. And it understands the way in which power flows from the bottom to the top, particularly in capitalism. And while Warbreaker feels more like a criticism of megachurches who have this sort of person at the head of it, who have a symbol at the head of it, the system in the hierarchy here is not about individuals. It is about the system. The system is what is being ceded to. It isn't actually people, right? And I think the book does a really good job of not deifying individuals and allowing for the system itself to consistently be what Vis, our main character, is throwing himself against. It is the concept that elevates their society, much like you see people in our world deifying crypto and NFTs and just capitalism in general, right? People laud hedge funds, but it isn't actually the individuals in those systems, right? Obviously, like Elon Musk has power in that system. Donald Trump now is a crypto billionaire. Those people have power within those systems, but it is the systems themselves, because people can see a way for them to rise up in those systems and take advantage of others, right? The crypto bros who are so desperate to become crypto millionaires know deep in their souls that in order for them to do that, somebody else has to lose. They have to take advantage of somebody not missing or not catching the dip at the right time, buying when it's too high. They know that for them to become rich, they have to take that money out of someone else's pocket. It doesn't come from nothing because they're not making anything. They're not providing anything. They are just hoping that they succeed where someone else fails. That is a massive, massive difference, right? This book is so much less about what it means to tithe to a religion, which is what Warbreaker is all about. And I think Brandon Sanderson really, coming to terms with what tithing feels like to him. Whereas this really is these characters living in a world where they are tithing to the government, to the economy, to the country itself. And there are people who have power within that. That is the big difference between the two for me, right? As someone who only listening to the audiobook, they're using seed, right? Or is it seed? No, it is seed with C. Yeah, it's CEDE, not seed like that. They are seeding power up the chain of command. Yeah. The book starts with Viz. Viz is hanging onto his daddy's hand at the edge of a cliff. And his dad basically is like, go live your life. Do your thing. It's actually not that. His dad is basically helping his son escape. We learn this really quickly. It's not much of a spoiler if you haven't read the whole part one. We learn really quickly that basically his father throws him off a cliff so that he can escape what will be almost inevitably his doom, right? The hierarchy is coming. They're going to take over their country of Zeus, which I thought was Zeus the whole time because I was listening to the audiobook at 2 times speed, as I am known to do, and I thought it was like ZEUS. There was a part of my brain thinking that because there's so much like Roman inspiration here, that the name of the country was the Greek god Zeus, as if othering him, but also Zeus and it's Jupiter in Roman mythology, right? Are the same. And so I thought, and I think there is still that, right? I think the reason why it's called Zeus is to be like Zeus. And so you have like the Roman Empire, and then you have the Greek. They have a very similar religion that is tied in ideology and kind of in background and in, I think, starting point. I think that the Greek and Roman mythologies branch off from some historical ancestor together. And so I did find he is the prince of Zeus. He's sort of our Hercules character, gets banished from the kingdom of Zeus, ends up being a poor orphan in the Roman Empire. There is a lot of Greek mythological hero having to do stuff in a Roman conscription culture going on in this book. I find it such a fascinating thing, right? We have a labyrinth that this Hercules character is going to have to go through. We have this character later on. I don't know. Blue, close your ears because I don't want to spoil this for you. So Blue, close your ears. But near the end of this, we have a character from Zeus basically like throwing lightning in an arena. It's not really lightning. I understand that it's like pure will or whatever. But he's throwing lightning in an arena, in a Roman gladiatorial combat arena. Phenofika says that was Theseus. I understand that Theseus was in the labyrinth. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that Hercules was in the labyrinth. I am saying that there are touchstones of Greek culture being pulled into this book for our, for lack of a better word, the Greek character, the Greek prince who was, thrown by his father from a cliff and ended up in the Roman Empire. He is going through these Greek mythology inspired challenges to topple the Roman Empire that has overtaken his home. It's just very interesting there. I think there's a lot of really deep mythological inspirations for this series. And as someone who loves that stuff, you know what I mean? Like I'm down for anything Greek inspired. I know I keep promising Percy Jackson book club on here. It will happen. As soon as I know when season 2 is coming out, we're going to pack in the Percy Jackson book clubs. But the way in which there's the Roman society, Greek hero, Greek challenges, weirdly, which is interesting because this is apparently going to go to a school on an island off the coast where they are doing the Greek challenge labyrinth thing in order to try and find a power from the Cataclysm that the character from the Greek-inspired place Zeus already has. I'm like, oh, okay. The Roman Empire is trying to get Greek magic. I totally see what we're doing here. It fucking works, okay? So, Zeus cliffs. Boy gets thrown off. It's very cool. Very cool stuff. Then we wake up. It's years later. The Zeus rebellion, long dead. Zeus maybe in shambles. I don't know how much of it's there. I'm excited. I think we will end up getting to go back there at some point in the series. I don't know if it happens in this book because I feel like all of part 2 takes place in the school. I have no idea what part 3 is going to be. The boy Vis has grown up to be a orphan who is taking the jobs that he can take to raise as much money as he can because he has not yet seeded his will. He has not yet gone through the trials at the temple that give him the ability to seed. They haven't gotten too specific into how that works yet, but apparently there is some element of a ritual that you have to kind of take on in order to be able to seed your will up the chain of command. He is working with this other jailer man who is his boss. He's a very nice man. They have a great relationship. The very nice man is not asking too many questions about the fact that Viz has been hanging out here for too long. He has been working in this jail for longer than you should be able to because this jail is filled with prisoners who are not present. They're not present because they are attached to these things called sappers. And these sappers are taking their will. 100% of their will. These people are not seeding like the Octavi, which is the lowest rung, which means 8. So like there's got to be a 1, but we only ever hear about level 3. I'm really curious who the 1 is and who the 2 is. Because I think that religion, government, and military are hiding the fact that there is a 2 and there's a 1. I just don't know. I feel like the twist is going to be what those 3 people are, and they're going to be really important later on. So the sappers suck 100% out of the will out of someone instead of the 50% that people are usually seeding after they've gone through the rituals. And being around this many sappers affects people long term. The jailer boss, who's only been here a couple of months, is being affected by the sappers already, and he's starting to go a little bit mentally. But Vis, who's been here longer, is not. Vis has not yet had a problem with the sappers. He seems to be mentally 100% okay, and he is speculating that this is probably because he has never seeded. He has not yet turned 17, which is the age where you have to start seeding, although a lot of people start seeding before that. And he has like fully just sort of stayed out of the system. And so he is not being affected by the system in this way. And this is the introduction to something that becomes really important as the way in which he interacts with the story is made possible by the fact that he does not seed. There are people in the chat saying that the table is at the start of the book. I know it goes, does the table at the start of the book go like higher than 3? I don't want to spoil myself by Googling it, but does the table in the book go up beyond the third level? Because they never talk about anyone higher than third after the beginning of the book, right? We never hear about the emperor. We never hear about the two under the emperor. It does? Okay. So it must just be in the table. But once the book starts, people don't really talk about who's at the top of this pyramid, right? We sort of get a... There is the talk of who are the head of the three chambers of government. And I just found that interesting. It's interesting that because the hierarchy is so tradition based, there's so many ways in which they talk about traditions. They don't have traditions about language that involves like the emperor in the way that you'd expect. There's no like Hail Caesar kind of chant that is important in this culture. And in fact, there's very little sort of holding up of individuals other than the people in your own pyramid, right? The Telemus family has power, but there isn't a oppressive force of a single person. And I found that fascinating. Like even the people who have a lot of power in this world understand that the power is the system itself. And so they're almost removed from it. Vis is working. He's not affected by the sappers. And he is visited. Not he is, but the jail is visited by a man. A very handsome man who's like 35. And he is like, hey, I am a Septimus, I think. Sextinus? Whatever. He lies about his rank. He says he's a 6th level. And he produces this like will chip. These people basically have like credit cards that you can tap, but you've got to fill them with specific will things, and then they interact with other will things. And if the tap is wrong, you ain't paying for your Tim Hortons. So sorry about it. I do wonder what these people do when the Wi-Fi is down. Like, can you still tap without Wi-Fi? It's a problem. It's a problem. So they end up in a kind of awkward situation where Alkiskor, this handsome man who is not yet given his real name, shows up, taps his chip. He's like, I need to go see this prisoner. And Vis is really trying to help out his jailer friend who is kind of losing it. And he's like, oh, I'll take you down. And they go down. And throughout this interaction, Alkiskor goes and he interviews a prisoner. Vis is a really smart character. We are learning really early on that as a young prince, he was highly educated and he was trained in multiple languages. He was trained in subterfuge. He was also trained in how to read people to make sure that he is able to hide who he is. He spends a lot of time thinking about how his actions are going to be perceived by the people around him, because the world that he lives in is one where that is so important. And Alkiskor talks to this guy in a language that not many people know. Not many people should know. Hierarchy would be very interested if they found out that Viz did. But Viz clearly overhears it. Not so clearly to Viz that they know, but Keyscore's not dumb. And things kind of get out of hand. The prisoner is like, I need you to let me out of here. He gets a little bit violent. Viz intercedes, and Viz's hand brushes against the sapper. It's a very like ghoulish system where the people are chained and they're lying on the sapper. And in order to get off the sapper, they have to be like winched. Their bodies have to be like, lifted up like it's a fucking Shibari class. And so Vis unfortunately touches the sapper and is completely unaffected. Alkiskor also notices that. This dude, Alkiskor, he notices shit. He's very aware. He knows what's going on in the world. He takes it in. He can see. You don't have to see in this world to see. We'll get into Daredevil later. That is going to be very confusing for Blue. And so Alkiskor says his goodbyes. He leaves, and Viz, thinking he got away with everything, takes a little bit of money from the jailer. He goes out into the world, and you're like, dude worked all day. It's time for him to go home, right? It's time for him to go home. No, it's not time for him to go home. It is time for him to go get into a bare knuckle brawl at the local undercover. It's really like a burlesque show that becomes a illegal fighting pit in the middle of the night. And the burlesque performer of the day RuPaul shows up and is like, hey, boy, not RuPaul. That's a weird thing. I like RuPaul. But, it's basically a drag performer, not a drag performer, a burlesque performer is like, you're going to fight this guy. He is I think he's a 7th level or a 6th level. Basically, he has superpowers. You are gonna go in the ring and you're gonna fight this guy and he has superpowers. And Viz is like, I can't fight a guy with superpowers, but I'm already here. Everyone's ready to fight. Okay, let's do this. What does Viz do? He takes off all his clothes. Because superpowers don't mean you want to touch bare dick. You know what I mean? He's like, that dude looks straight as hell. He doesn't want to touch my bare dick. Viz is wrong, unfortunately. Dude is happy to punch bare dick, but it's a decent strategy. The actual reason for it is that Viz is concerned that the man will infuse will into his clothes, and sort of like Vasher does in Warbreaker. I guess I'm spoiling Brandon Sanderson now, but that won't make sense unless you read the book. He can basically make the clothes come to life in some way and attack Viz. So he's like, if I go in naked, at least I know he can't do shit to me. Even though we learn after the fight, dude wouldn't have been able to do that anyway. This is one of those first times where we start to understand that despite the fact that Viz is very educated, really understands the world, knows all these languages, he has some pretty big blind spots in his knowledge when it comes to will and what it can do. And so they fight. And Viz is supposed to lose. We meet, there's like a gambling bookie that Viz is friends with that he doesn't fix the fights with, but he meets his opponents and then he comes up with his own odds for whether or not he can beat that person. And then he tells the bookie what he thinks his own odds are. And the bookie, he's right often enough that the bookie sets his odds based on Viz's own opinion and allows Viz to bet on himself, which I thought was very funny. Viz has not been losing a lot lately. Viz is beating the shit out of people. And the town is kind of upset about it because he's like this orphan kid. And so he hops in the ring. Starquake is asking in chat, does having a lot of will make your senses better, like having breaths? Yes. Yes, it does make your senses better. And it can allow you to use senses differently. If the book gets into, basically, there's a woman who is Daredevil. She's just Daredevil, and she uses will to see at a frequency that's kind of unnecessary. We'll get to that, but you can use senses beyond normal senses with will. Alkiskor is probably perceptive by nature and by training, right? Alkiskor has gone to the labyrinth. He's trained in subterfuge. He is in he's a leadership in the military, which in this world tells me he's like probably got their equivalent of CIA training, but he also is a Quintus and has an immense amount of will being ceded to him, hundreds of people's will being ceded up the food chain to him. And so probably has incredibly crisp eyesight, incredible hearing, all of those things. So you would think Viz is just gonna take his licks, get his ass kicked, and take his money and go. He bets with the gambling man that he will last 3 minutes. It reminded me of, I don't know if you guys watched WWE back in the day, I think he bets for 90 seconds, right? Back in the day, the reason I think 3 minutes, there was this thing on the WWE where, not Ric Flair. Oh my God. Who was the guy that won the gold medal? Why can't I remember? It was 3 minutes in the ring with, what was his name? Oh, that's going to drive me crazy. If you could last 3 minutes in the ring with him, you got his gold medal. Basically was the conceit. And so it would be regular Kurt Angle. Thank you, Shark89. I knew someone in my chat would know. Kurt Angle did this thing where he bet his gold medal that you couldn't last 3 minutes in the ring with him. He had his famous finishing move where he'd stand over you with your ankle in his hand. He'd twist your ankle and make you tap out. And it was one of my favorite segments on WWE in the 90s. I would get so hyped to watch some random guy just get chased around the ring by a professional wrestler for 3 minutes and always lose. Kurt Angle did not fuck around. So, Vis, similarly, doesn't fuck around. See that transition? He's a professional. Vis doesn't fuck around because this guy starts taunting him. And Vis is, at first, fighting really smartly, right? He is staying out of the way. He is using his speed and the fact that he's been in more fights than it seems like this guy has in order to keep himself from being in danger, really, in the fight. And when this guy starts taunting him, starts getting that blood boiling in Viz, things change. Viz starts being overly aggressive. And while you might think that that would lead to him to lose to someone with superpowers, unfortunately, this guy is not at all prepared for that. He is cocky and he's not taking it seriously. And Viz beats the literal shit out of this man. It's to the point where they are worried Viz is going to kill this man. And this man has some political power. This man cannot die because if an unseating child were to kill this man, it would cause problems. So what does the burlesque performer do? He was cheating. Vis was cheating. Vis agrees that he was cheating, which is a very interesting thing about this character, right? We learn here that he's not humble, not really. However, Vis is so concerned with getting caught up in the system of the hierarchy. His only desire is that he not cede. He wants to stay out of it. He doesn't want to give his will away. He doesn't want to take anybody else's will, very importantly. And so he is willing to take the blow to his reputation, to his ego, all of it, in order to say, yeah, I was cheating. Don't think about this too much. Please don't look into me. I really don't want anyone here to know that I'm a prince from a nation, because if they find out that I'm that prince, I'm going to get killed. It's a level of understanding of one's situation and of how dangerous the society that he lives in that sold me on this book really hard. It wasn't the fight, which is very well written, right? It wasn't the excitement. It wasn't the action. It was this in this moment going, I have no choice but to say that my honor is void. I have no choice but to admit to a lie, even though I desperately don't want to, and I want to cave that man's skull in, because the hierarchy is that dangerous. Because my goal of staying out of the system, of staying away from will and from seeding and all of it, is more important, no matter how angry I am right now, no matter how beat down and dejected I feel. And the fact that he did win. He won against someone with these supernatural reflexes and strength. And that was the moment where I think I got hooked. Genuinely. Because I was like, oh, shit. You've sold me on the danger of the bad guys. And the bad guys aren't people, right? The bad guys are that the system does work. The system does give this nation strength and security and safety for now, obviously. We'll talk about it. But the nation, it's too big for him. He doesn't see a way to win, and so he has to play smart. And so I'm hooked, and so I am in. You know what I mean? It just works out that way. So Vis goes home to or I should say there was a woman who has been coming to see him lately. Not talking to him, but like come to see his fights. She wears a hood, and she wants to talk to him, and he never talks to her because, you know, Vis, he's all about that cash money. He does, one of the things that happens is Vis does bet a big amount on this fight that he's going to last long enough. And technically he does, but also all bets are reversed. So he just gets his money back. He gets this big payday for doing the fight that he was going to bet to be even more money. So he does keep his money, which is nice. The gambling man, even though the gambling man got kind of fucked over by Vis's actions, he does take care of Vis in this moment. And I thought that was very sweet. We go meet the matron. Now, the matron is the fucking worst. She's the devil. She is this orphan runner woman who basically just takes advantage of Vis, treats him like shit, and carves his back up when he refuses to go cede his will. He has been saying he will not go to the temple. He doesn't want to go through the rituals. He will not cede his will. And so she has scarred the shit out of him. Xaden Ryerson 2.0 here. And I mean, kind of, right? They're both kind of Xaden Ryerson. Xaden just like wants to be a part of the revolution. And I don't know that this guy does. She's Miss Hannigan. Arzu, look. Miss Hannigan is overwhelmed, okay? Miss Hannigan is not a great person. Miss Hannigan does not whip Annie. I can't believe I'm saying this, but in Miss Hannigan's defense, I don't think she beats the kids, which is an improvement. Sadly, it's better. She's forcing children to cede early. Oh, no, 100%. I'm saying that, like, Miss Hannigan isn't as bad as this woman is. This woman is the worst. She is taking advantage of kids. She's beating children. Like, I was hoping this woman was going to get more comeuppance from Alkiskor. I was hoping that Alkiskor was going to, like, realize what she was doing, and that when they leave, that he would be like, I'm sending someone to investigate that woman, because clearly what she's doing is wrong. You know what I mean? I thought there'd be some dialogue around that or something, but they kind of make a clean break. We should explain that. Vis goes home. He goes to bed. He wakes up. This Quintus is coming to adopt a child the next day. He's still a noble and he don't give a fuck. I know. I understand that. Like, I don't think it's wrong in the writing for Alkiskor to not do anything. I wanted him to do something. He did force her to pay through her nose. Yes, the money that she took from specifically Viz, right? And so she did have to give up what she made off of Viz, which is probably a lot of money to her, but not the money she's making off of all of those kids seeding, right? Not that, so she lost one money train and had to repay some back debts, but she has a bunch of other ones that she's going to continue to manipulate. I just wanted her to get investigated by the government. I don't know. Even though I don't trust the government. I don't know. I just want consequences for the woman that beats kids. Sue me. So, Alkiskor shows up and he's like, I'm going to adopt a kid. He takes Viz into a room. They talk for like 2 hours. The matron is like, what the fuck is going on? This dude is 17. You want to adopt a 7? No one wants to adopt an adult. No one wants to adopt a 17-year-old. Fucking take one of the cute ones. And Alkiskor is like, this is my man. You want to be a Telemus? And Viz is like, not really. Not particularly, but I don't have a choice. And so we find out that Viz was Viz is confused how Alkiskor found him, but you can like track will or track your own will. I'm not 100% sure about how the tracking works yet. You can put will into something, right? And then you can find that thing later, which is how Alkiskor manages to find this cubby where Viz has been hiding his stuff. But there doesn't seem to be like a gadget or like a gizmo. We never hear them talk about like like a divining rod to that will. So it seems like it seems to me like you can only track your own will. You can't like put will in something and then tell somebody else to go find that. Maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong. But I think that's true. Alkiskor's like, we're leaving like right now. We are going far away from here. And Viz is like, oh, okay, what a crazy day. This is wild. So Alkiskor takes him and he's like, we're going to go get on a transvect, which is basically just a giant like slice of pizza that moves in the air through will. So you can, so you can lift something off the ground with the will of the strength it would need to lift that thing. But if you connect things to the thing that you're lifting, those get lifted but you only need the will to lift the thing doing the lifting, right? You don't need to be able to carry the entire transvect. You have to have enough will seated into a piece of it to fly, which is crazy, which is nuts. Very cool, very useful, but nuts. And so they go get up on a transvect and they start flying off. It is terrifying, as I imagine the first time anybody gets into anything that flies is. Arzu says it's a flying train, essentially. Yeah, but it's like a triangle, isn't it? Maybe I pictured it as a triangle. I pictured it like the ship from the Eternals. You know what I mean? The Eternals, when the ship in the Eternals takes off, it's like a big triangle thing that kind of just like hover floats. It's on the new cover. I should just look it up because I do actually want to know what he's picturing. I was picturing the ship from the Eternals the whole time. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a little bit more bricky. It's a little bit more blocky than I pictured. Because instead of it being a triangle, it like comes to a point. It's more of a pyramid on the front. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. I dig that. For those of you watching on YouTube, there it is on the new cover. That's kind of similar. I pictured a little bit more of a triangle, but this thing flies. But it doesn't fly for long. They get immediately attacked. They're like a few hours out of town. They get shot down. And the systems are failing. This thing is going down. It is bad. And so what does Magnus Quintus Alquiscor do? He opens a panel. He's like, we're going to go through the belly of this fucking machine. And then we're going to jump. And we're going to hope that my superpowers keep you alive, kid. And they do. It works. I don't really know how much. Okay, so one of the things that confused me with this, I understand the concept of Alquiscor is super strong, so if he hits first, he takes more damage. But in order for Alquiscor to be that strong, his body's gotta be pretty hard. I just imagine this would still suck. I mean, it does suck, but like the chances of surviving this, crazy for a guy with very little will. They do survive though. Viz's shoulder's a bit fucked up, but they survive, and you're like, well, fuck, they made it out of that one. What could possibly be next? And in the blue, this is also going to be a spoiler for you if you haven't read part one. In the first of many sort of discussions around terrorism and the way in which this world kind of reflects our own, this has essentially been a roadside bomb, much like was used by many different combatants in the Middle East in the last 20 years of war. This book is very heavily inspired by, I think, the war on terror and the reasons for it, the fake reasons for it, right? The way in which the American population was manipulated into believing that this war was necessary when it clearly wasn't. There's a lot of ways in which this book is inspired by that, and this is the first time we get that kind of terrorism angle where a group of terrorists, kind of two different groups of terrorists that are in the same group of terrorists, have taken down this transvect in an attempt to get grain. We meet the Anguis. They are a people outside the hierarchy, much like the Susians were, who are still holding up their rebellion. They have a attempted revolution ongoing against what is going on in the hierarchy, against the system of will, against the empire. And Vis and Alquiscor run into some of these people who are doing what they're doing. And Alquiscor fucking wrecks shop. He punches a man so hard in the head that his head explodes. Like a fucking grape between my thumb and forefinger. It just gone. Um, Arzu says, there are terrorists in my fantasy book, and I really didn't know that was allowed. I always assume such concepts are only for other genres. That's interesting. That's so fascinating. I don't know that I've read a fantasy book that had such direct terrorism allegories before. Right? Especially ones that are so explicitly our world of terrorism, or what we call terrorism in our world, right? What we have, the images and the scenes from television that we've become accustomed to my whole life. Yeah, I'm sure there is, like, I'm sure this isn't, like, no idea is truly original. I'm sure there is a fantasy book where that exists. And, you could say at times that there are allegories that are less direct, right? Like a dragon attack can have the feeling of a terrorist attack, in my opinion. I think that you can write it that way. But I agree with you that this is the first time I've read a book, and partially because this book is trying so hard to connect itself directly to criticizing modern American politics, which is so obvious throughout, right? Even in the breakdown of government, religion, and military, and the way in which they distrust each other and argue against one another, and how they work together but have these relationships. There is so much about this book that is a attack on the American soft power empire, and in the reasons why people push back against it. And so I think that to tell that story without to tell that story in the modern era without some sort of a terrorism allegory, was really without the terrorism allegory would have been, I think, missing something, right? I think that James Islington very smartly brought in the allegory that is necessary to continue the criticism that he is writing so well. Shark89 says, I didn't realize he had punched him before his head exploded. It read like he realized the guy was lying and just made his head explode. That is... Yeah. Yeah. It was the rock he held and dropped, essentially a rock bullet. Oh, interesting. Okay. So not a punch, but a rock bullet. Will, man. Will can do anything. I'm really excited to get more into the schooling around Will, because they say shaped by Will a lot. In a way that I'm like, but like how? You know what I mean? When they were talking about the Will cage around the island, and they're like, yeah, like there's just so much Will that no Will can get through. And I was like, uh-huh. 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 Sure. Whatever you say, bud. So Alkiskor goes in and fights. He's kicking ass, taking names, and then out of the trees, an arrow right in the leg. He takes it, and then suddenly the leg is throbbing, and Alkiskor, a Magnus Quintus, a man with the will of 100 men, goes down. He's out, and Alkiskor and Vis has to go in and save his life. Fights off some men. Now Alkiskor has powers. Vis doesn't. It's a little bit harder for Vis, but Vis has also been brawling in the arena for a minute. He's able to take him out. It's a really cool scene. You should read this book. It's a very good book. Vis wins the fight, and when he thinks, man, I think I've saved the day, but someone's about to shoot me with an arrow, out of the trees comes the fucking woman from the burlesque show. Not the matron, the matron's the other lady. Not his boss there who runs the fights. The woman that's been showing up. And she's like, hey, my guy, Tiago. And he's like, what? No, my name's Vis. And she's like, no, shut the fuck up. You're the Prince of Seuss. You fuck. What, you think I've been coming to watch you fight just because I thought you were hot? No, motherfucker. I'm Sedocia. I'm with the Anguis. I don't want to suck your dick, dude. I want you to join the rebellion. I want you to come with us. We're gonna take you away. You're gonna spend 3 weeks with us, and then you're gonna escape, and you're gonna go back. You're gonna be a Telemus. You're gonna do some shit for us. And Vis is like, yeah, no, dog. That's I'm not interested. And she's like, what? But you hate them. And Viz is like, yeah, of course I fucking hate them. They're the worst. They're the hierarchy. What? Of course I hate them. She's like, but we're fighting them. And he's like, yeah, I don't want to fight them. I want out. I want to live my life. I don't want to be in a rebellion. Also, your rebellion sucks. You're just attacking people. Everyone hates you. Every village I go to where they've met the Anguis, they're like, yeah, fuck the Anguis. Those people suck. They just attack civilians. And she's like, well, but like, we have to attack civilians or else we can't win. And he's like, oh, but then no one's going to be on your side, you fucking idiot. Like, no, I don't want to come with you. And I think she's... This is that second moment where this book does something that you don't see fantasy books do, right? Which is have the hero turn down the call to adventure, right? If we're talking about like the Hero of a Thousand Faces, I know who wrote that fucking book. I can't pull it right now. Someone in chat drop who wrote it. But, you know, that one of the steps on the journey of the Hero of a Thousand Faces is the call to adventure, right? Aragorn gets the dragon egg, becomes a dragon rider. He's going to fight Galbatorix. Luke Skywalker finds out that his father was a Jedi before him. There's the Clone Wars. We get to Mos Eisley, or, he doesn't want to leave his parents, but his parents die, and he's like, all right, I'm going to go fight Darth Vader. This meets the rebellion that is fighting the fight that his father fought, that is fighting the fight that his kingdom fought when it was destroyed by these awful people. And he's like, nah, dog. I'm a fucking Magnus Quintus's son now. I'm not fighting nobody. I'm going to go spar with a blind lady. She's going to kick my ass, but your rebellion is doing terrorism shit, and I don't want to be a part of it. This saying, I reject your false binaries. Yeah, pretty much. Nicholas McDonald says, I was pretty surprised how little direct explanation of will there was. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I kept yearning for a direct explanation. I have a feeling it's going to be such a big part of the school section that not putting it in part one allows for it to be in part two in a more natural way. And so that part two doesn't feel like it is just covering the same ground part one already covered. Elaine Irving, refusal of the call is a known trope, but not done as often. I've definitely read books where they refuse the call, for sure. I'm not saying that I've never read anything like it. I think that the way in which he refuses the call and his reasoning for refuses it, it's so interesting, right? I have a big problem with main characters who don't want to participate in the book. I've said that before. I have said that a million times. I've said that about books we're reading right now, right? Like one of my issues at times with Rhythm of War that we'll talk about on Friday. We're past. Like, thankfully, this isn't what the book is doing, and I'm glad. But there was moments up until where I got to in Rhythm of War this week where I was worried that we were going to have characters who don't want to be there. And I find characters who don't want to be there inherently uninteresting. It is really hard to pull off a character who just doesn't want to participate, right? This isn't that. This is very intentional about what he wants to do. He wants to be in this book because he has goals, he has dreams, he has aspirations. He is just so certain at a young age what his aspirations are that he really doesn't want to be a fucking part of your shit. And that's so different to me. That, I think, is really strong because it allows for me to understand what the call to adventure is, which is rebellion, which is taking down the hierarchy. It allows for him to turn down that. It allows for him to say no to the call to adventure without making it feel like we are just waiting for the book to give him enough reason to say yes, right? Which is what I think a lot of books do. They're like, oh, he's going to say no the first time, but then this is going to happen. And that's going to be what it does, right? And you could say like Luke Skywalker does that a little bit because like, well, I can't leave. Like my uncle needs me, yada, yada. But that lasts 4 minutes, less than 4 minutes in the movie, right? Like he barely turns it down. He wants it so bad. He feels like he can't go, which is very different. He wants to participate. He feels like he can't. He's not uninterested. Hey, Clarus. Clarus just came back from the gym wearing my clothes. Unbelievable, making my clothes sweaty. Can you believe that, chat? And so I think that that's the difference to me. Like, I think that if you're going to have your character not answer the call, it has to be because of conviction. And Viz's conviction is so vast and so consistent, and it is so clear that he is on a journey. It's just not the journey that the people who are fighting against the hierarchy think that he should be on. And so it's riveting, right? Arzu says, I bet she looks great in them. Honestly, I love Clarus. You guys know I think my wife is like the hottest woman ever. But in my clothes, she kind of is just not present. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so large and she's so small. She's just like wearing my hoodie. And if she were to like hide in it, it's not even hide. She doesn't have to hide. She doesn't have to try. You can't see her. She looks great under it. But in the like fucking like comforter she's wearing right now, that is a small hoodie on me, she kind of is gone. So Vis says no to Sedocia, and she's shocked, but she's like, look, we know who you are, so we do have leverage over you. See you at the festival. Vis is like, maybe. If I can, I'll try. And Vis picks up Alkiskor's body, gets him back on the Transvect, and thank God the Transvect is not a difficult machine to fly. There's 4 levers. First lever, not it. Second lever, drops all the grain off. Which Viz is like, fuck. Oh, wait, no, I hate the hierarchy. This is great. So in a weird way, Vis does help the Anguis because they are starving. And he leaves them a bunch of food, which is what the non-Sedocia side of the Anguis attacked the Transvect for, which I liked. I liked Vis's little moment of a win here. He also got stabbed in all of this. So he is, I forgot to mention this, he's bleeding to death right now as this goes on. And so as he finds lever number 3, third time's the charm, fucking takes off and he passes out. He's unconscious. Chris Hazelden says, could she put her head against the wall and make people think there was just a hoodie hanging there? No, she's not. You would still see her legs. Jay's currently reading part 1. We'll catch the VOD. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate that. I hope you like it. Guys, I don't know if it's clear. I love this book. Like, I am deeply, deeply enamored with it. I think it is very good. It has twists I don't see coming. It has a power system I'm finding riveting. Like, I am very, very into this book. So they wake up, this does, in the Telemus estate. And we begin the training process for the academy. Basically, the plan is that there's this guy, Viridius, and he used to be military, but he switched to religion. And he is running the academy, which is run by religion. The academy is this place where all the very special boys and girls go to learn how to be the best, but they're not allowed to use any will while they're there, right? It is a no-will location, which is very interesting because I don't really understand how the labyrinth works there if you can't use will. I understand that maybe if you are, this could get dark. Maybe you can use will if the will is being seeded from within the force cage. And so maybe what we're going to find out is that the academy is over a like secret prison of sappers that are sapping enough will to, because because they're within the force cage, that their will can be sapped to run the academy. That's dark. It's where all the kids who do naughty, wake up. That's where they send you if you don't do your homework. You got to seed your will all day. Jared Poulter, he wakes up in the academy. Yeah, he wakes up I messed up. He wakes up in the academy where he is going to end up going to school. That is true. He wakes up in the academy. Some students ask him what happened. Despite having been unconscious for a minute, having a big stab wound, he is still Vis. He thinks through exactly what he's saying to try and hide as much as possible, not let anyone know that he talked to Sedocia. These students run out. Viridius comes in, doesn't tell him that he's Viridius, interrogates him a little bit, reveals he's Viridius, and Viz is like, fuck, that Viridius guy, he is already on my ass. Alkiscor is sending Viz to investigate because Alkiscor thinks that Viridius is doing something. He's doing something, and we gotta find out because it can't be good. Probably. I don't know. What's so fun about this book, and one of the reasons why I think the mystery of it is so enticing, is I don't trust Alkiscor at all. I don't like Alkiscor. You know what I mean? I don't think he's a good dude. I don't trust his opinion on anything. This also doesn't trust him or think that he's being honest. And so the fun thing about this is Viridius might be the good guy. I'm not saying he probably isn't, right? Or not, and certainly won't be to Viz. But within the hierarchy, Viridius could be the better of the two between him and Alkiscor. I don't think that's going to end up being the case, but it's possible right now, right? Like the entirety of the situation is such that Viz basically met a guy, got adopted by him, and is now only hearing that side of the story. And Alkiscor's side of the story is filled with holes. He is missing so much information. Arzu says good guys need level of definition. Yeah. Good guy to somebody, right? He might be the better of the two men, is what I should probably say. Arzu also says he thinks he killed his brother. Kind of, right? Kind of. I don't know that I think Alkiscor has convinced himself that he thinks that he killed his brother. But I think more what he thinks than he killed his brother is that Viridius is lying about his brother's death, right? But maybe not killed. And what's so fascinating, because as we learn more about his brother's death, how some people think how the general public thinks it's suicide, is that we know Viridius was present when his brother died. And we know that Viridius and his brother were investigating something on the island. And we know that the girl that they were with was rendered unconscious in that. One of the elements of his brother's death is that there is an ocean of possibility between Viridius killed him and he killed himself. Especially because of the magic and the will and the magic that we end up seeing in the Coliseum later, right? I think that Alkiscor thinks the most likely scenario is that Viridius killed his brother. But I think that he knows Viridius is lying about his brother's death. And that something happened there that Viridius is lying about. It might not be, though, that Viridius killed him, but that his brother died and Viridius lied about the manner of it. And I genuinely think there is a part of Alkiscor that would love for it not to have been murder. Right? I do. I think that there's a part of Alkiscor that would love to find out that the mystery is not that Viridius killed his brother, but that something else happened. And it's one of the things I do kind of like about Alkiscor as a character is he does seem to be very driven by truth and by a desire for like genuine knowledge. And I don't find him to be vengeful, right? He is mistrusting of Viridius. He is angry towards him. But I think that he would find comfort in knowing the truth. No matter what that truth is, right? And I find that fascinating. Obviously you guys are talking about how suicide is extremely shameful because of birthright, which is such an interesting concept of like, it's so fucking American, right? The political conversation around like being pro-life, this world's version of his birthright, where death is, seen as bad unless they're a prisoner, unless. And the book keeps doing the American thing where like, I'm pro-life, but once you're a criminal, did you commit petty larceny 25 years ago? Well, I'm not pro-life no longer. Arzu says, I think he wants justification. Yes. But not justification for... I don't think he wants to kill Viridius. I think he wants the truth to be known. I think he wants to know personally for his brother. I do think that it is... I do think that Alkiskor is a character who is less inclined to be vengeful than he is to seek justice. He wants to be right. Yes, he wants to be right? But I don't think I do think that he wants justice, not vengeance. And there is a difference there, right? Characters who want vengeance feel differently than he does, in my opinion. And I do like that. I like that element of him. I like that this is all about the truth. In a world where everyone is lying all the time, where everything is a lie, these characters are so embroiled in their desire for truth, for understanding, for knowledge. These are characters who are driven by intellect and by like political knowledge in a way that makes them just fascinating. And it makes watching them learn about the world is more interesting because they're genuinely interested in it. He wants his brother's memories to be untarnished? For sure. Oh, absolutely. Starquake says, this is one thing I don't like much about the single POV. We never really know what other characters are thinking. It's good for the mystery, but I don't find it much fun. Starquake's like, I want to know stuff now. I don't want to wait till the end of the book. I hear you. I'm not always the biggest fan of first-person books. This one is... I don't love first-person books, to be honest. I know that a lot of romantasy books are written from first person so that women can like, diddle themselves while they read them. But that one's going to get me in trouble. I want to be clear. That was a joke. Men also diddle themselves while they read them. The first person isn't always my favorite, but this is one of my favorite first person reads. I know I'm only a third of the way through. Like it could fall apart, but like, I can't think of another first-person book that I enjoyed as much as this one. Because I usually find the first-person thing to be to take me out a little bit, Starquake says, listening to the Taravangian chapters were my favorite. No spoilers. That's Friday's book club, Starquake. We got a juicy Taravangian chapter that Clarissa and I haven't read yet. That reaction will go up either tonight or tomorrow. I don't know yet. Anyway, so he wakes up at the academy. He tells them the stories. Him and Alkiskor leave. And on the way out, Viridius tells Alkiskor where his brother's grave is. And Alkiskor doesn't go, which is interesting. He's like, no, we just got to go. I will visit. This is what I mean about vengeance, right? Alkiskor isn't the guy that goes to his brother's grave and is like, I promise you, brother, I will get vengeance for you one day. Alkiskor is the guy who's like, I will go to my brother's grave when justice has been served. That's the difference. It's not dramatic. It's practical. It's pragmatic. He will visit his brother's grave when Viridius has answered for his crimes. So they leave. They go to the estate, and we meet Daredevil, who is a woman who we later find out was the brother's girlfriend at school. She can't see, but she can... This is where the will thing... This is where I'm excited for the part 2 will school time is coming from. She can throw her will around 200 times per second to see with like will echolocation. And she is 200 times a second. It seems like too many times, right? Like, I think the human eye can only process 48 frames per second. I think that's true. So 200 times just feels just unnecessary. Like, here's the thing. Say sending out your will every single time is the same amount of energy. And a human eye can only see 48 frames per second. Then sending out your will 200 times means that you are wasting 75% more energy than you need to be to accomplish the same task. Because just because she's sending her will out and getting more feedback doesn't mean her brain can process it any faster. Like, she doesn't have a super brain, right? So she is, in a way, wasting energy, accruing information that her brain can't use. Now, obviously, this is assuming that the 200 times per second is at all translatable to the frame rate at which our eyes can perceive the world. And so this might be a waste. But yeah, she's like a pigeon, a super pigeon. I would read that comic. Super pigeon, here to save the day. This week on Heroes for Hire, it's Daredevil and Super Pigeon. But she is his tutor and basically just spends weeks beating the shit out of him. Alkiskor goes off to the Senate. He's got a big boy job. He's got shit he's got to do. But he goes off to the Senate. She starts training him. She starts training Viz. There's also a doctor there named Cadmus who it was hard not to think of Cadmus from the DC universe, but that's fine. He used to run this like very cool school until he was hoisted out of that job because people from his country, I guess, can't have positions of power. And so he just, like, despite being brilliant, was fired because fucking fascism, capitalism, all of the awfuls of the world. And so, you know, much like university teachers on the ideas of fascism, he now works in Canada. He found a new job somewhere else where the government wasn't oppressing him. And the two of them begin to teach Vis. She also, despite the fact that Vis is fucking exhausted and he is drinking a tea that allows him to be of value during the day. Basically, this tea allows him to have the energy, the necessity, the ability to participate during the day. When it comes to nighttime, he is like super fucked, right? It's like, I don't know if you guys have ever taken Dayquil, but when Dayquil runs out, I'm a dead man. I either have to take more Dayquil or I have to start taking NyQuil and go to bed. But if I just take like Dayquil every 4 hours and then stop at like 11 p.m., I feel like the world is trying to crumble me. I feel like gravity multiplies and every cell of my body is trying to be in pain. It is like banging into itself to be in pain. And that's what I pictured here. He takes Dayquil all day. He doesn't get NyQuil. He goes to sleep. But then Daredevil fucking jumps him in the middle of the night, despite the fact that he has a fucking broken ass shoulder and he's on Dayquil, no NyQuil, and starts beating the shit out of him, asking him, like, who was the 5th president of the United States of America? And he's like, I don't fucking know. Do I know who the 5th? I don't know who the 5th president. I don't know, guys. I'm Canadian. I was like, lady, stop beating the shit out of him. But then she keeps beating the shit out of him. And I was getting frustrated, okay? I was getting frustrated. I was like, if this woman was my teacher and she was treating me the way that she was training Viz, I would disengage. I would be like, look, you don't want to help me. You just dislike me. There's no value to this. There's nothing here for me. You don't like me. That's fine. This isn't working. And I would disengage. And I was so fucking grateful because in the book, this is like, okay, lady, look, if you're going to be condescending all the time, this isn't going to work. We have to find a way to work together because this sucks. It doesn't feel like you want to help me. It doesn't feel like I'm getting anything out of this. It doesn't feel like you think this is going anywhere. This is bad. This is not working. And I was like, oh, of course we were leading to this conversation. James Islington knew I was going to be frustrated with how this was going. And he wrote in the conversation about how it's frustrating how this was going. Great. This is an author that fucking understands what he's writing. He's leading me places. He's got my hand and he's taking me where he needs me to go. You know what I mean? And I was like, thank God. That conversation was rad. It was so good because the book directly confronted the feelings the book was giving me. And I love that. I love reading shit like that because it tells me the author knows. It's all intentional. He's doing it to do it. You know what I mean? Which is sometimes what I get frustrated with Brandon Sanderson with, where I'm like, oh, this is going to go somewhere. And then it doesn't fucking go anywhere. And then I'm like, why did you write 300 pages about racism that wasn't important? It's the reason why I fucking lose my mind about Warbreaker sometimes, right? Don't just create things and then they just that it wasn't actually that important to the book. I just spent 300 pages on it. This book doesn't waste any of those shit things, right? Any feeling this book starts to instill in its audience is because there is going to be a scene where that is like used to emotionally tug at them yet. And there's things that are open-ended emotions that I feel about this book. But because of how successfully in part one it told the story of part one, I'm convinced that all of the acts are going to have structure. This isn't just a run-on sentence, but the end of the sentence is really good, right? This sentence, part one of this book, had beginning, middle, and end. It had its own emotional stories. It had its own arc. I understood the journey of it, and it landed. If this was book one, I would have been like, oh, it's a little short, but like this was a good book. I enjoyed this. I cannot wait for book two, right? I think that there's something so impressive in that. He's doing a great job. Love it. Big fan. So she introduces him to the labyrinth. The labyrinth is the most video game bullshit. the most video game bullshit in the world. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait to get the kids fighting each other with the labyrinth. The labyrinth is essentially this giant room that is somehow a secret. It is a massive space with magic walls that can move with a gauntlet. And nobody knows that it exists because Alquiskor got the plan secretly and then privately using will made it himself in a way where nobody knows that it's here. And I was like, in what fucking world? Also, like, there is a conversation where Daredevil and Viz are talking, and she's like, yeah, we had to, like, bring in stone from different places. And I'm like, I understand that you had to bring it in from different places, but you still had to bring in, like, no one who worked here was like, hey, that's the 20th order of granite to come in this week. Where's it going? Is no one else curious about the fact that we keep receiving massive shipments of stone and it disappears into the house somewhere and none of us know where that is? What the fuck is going on? If even just Cadmus knew about it, it wouldn't be as funny to me. But the fact that even Cadmus has no idea that they have, like, this is getting the shit kicked out of him. And I guess they're beating the shit out of him with their hands too. But like the idea that no one on this property knows that there is a massive, absolutely massive arena of stone that moves. And when Viss is like destroying it by accident because he's not good at it yet, he's slamming granite into each other. They're like, the sound ricocheted off the walls with thunderous exclamation. And I'm like, no one can hear this shit? There's not some servant somewhere being like, well, there's no thunder outside. What the fuck was that? The thing that this made me think of, and I do wonder if this book was inspired by it, is the Maze Runner series. because I think that predates this book by a few years, probably by a lot. Actually, when did this book come out? I think it's fairly recent, right? Oh, this is 2023. Oh, yeah. Maze Runner way predates this. The labyrinth idea reminded me of the walls in the Maze Runner that close behind them or that move and close as they're running. And it's kind of like if you took Maze Runner, took out all the dumb bullshit in the Maze Runner, which is unfortunately like most of the Maze Runner, but God, do I love that series, even despite the fact that it makes no sense. And instead of having the maze be this danger on its own, the maze is dangerous because the kids control the maze, right? It's kind of like Maze Runner, but the kids have someone in the chat said Nintendo Power Glove that allows them to control it and make it dangerous themselves. You read all of Divergent? Me too. I'm so sorry. I wish we could book club those books. Y'all, can you imagine doing a book club on Divergent when the reveal... I'm about to spoil Divergent, so I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I am about to spoil Divergent. But when the twist is that it's eugenics... the absolutely wild twist that it's eugenics was crazy. Also, eugenics that didn't make any sense. The twist in Maze Runner being that they are trying to scare the shit out of children because children produce a hormone when they're scared that the company whose name is Wicked can use to come up with a cure for the Scorch, which is a disease that zombifies people because of a solar flare. the depths of the nonsense in Maze Runner is so crazy, and I love it so much. I'm a big fan of the Scorch. You've got to cross the Scorch. Anyway, Arzu, are you saying no because I spoiled Divergent for you? I'm so sorry. Yeah, so the Labyrinth is Nintendo Power Glove wall mechanics where you have to run through. When you get really good at it, you can control the walls and run at the same time, which is not possible. I just want to call it out. I just want to call it out real fast. They set up when he wears the glove that if you twist your hand like the slightest bit, it does things. And I don't know if you guys have ever run, but kept your hand perfectly still before. But I haven't. The idea that I'm going to run, but that my hand won't move is insane. I wish him the best. I do think this is going to die. Jared Poulter says Divergent and Maze Runner both felt like books that had fun ideas that the authors didn't actually know what to do with. They both have first books that have fun ideas. And then I think that they were both series that were sold off of the first book's plot. And then when they were like, oh, I need you to write the rest of the series, they were trying to write concepts after they'd already like written the first book that could justify the nonsense in the first book. But the problem with Divergent is that what happens in the first book has literally nothing to do with the rest of the series, right? This isn't Divergent Book Club, but it's also kind of the same problem with the Maze Runner, where the second and third book in the Maze Runner trilogy have nothing to do with the first book, almost at all, except that the characters are the same characters. The second and third book of Maze Runner keep trying to justify running mazes. But like the maze, it never made sense, right? And so a lot of those dystopian series from that YA era have really solid, in my opinion, first books that are like really fun reads that there's just no justification for what happened. Like the maze in Maze Runner, they should have just left it nebulous or made it aliens, because there's just no justification where that works, right? There's just no world where it actually makes any sense. And so just leave it kind of vague. It's kind of like, I'm not going to spoil the movie, but the movie Us by Jordan Peele. I love Jordan Peele as a director. I think he's a very talented man. I like all of his movies. Us has a monologue at the end of the movie that explains what's going on that absolutely ruined the whole film for me. And I was vibing with it. I thought Lupita was fucking great. I love, Winston Duke is great in that movie. I thought Us was really good. And then there's a monologue at the end of the movie that explains how it works. And I was like, oh, you should have just never said that. You should have just let me guess. Because the guessing in my head was better than your explanation. Because your explanation is nonsense. And it literally ruined the movie for me. And other people aren't going to have that same response to the monologue. I get that. But I do wish... I do wish that monologue just didn't exist, because I think that like leaving it a little bit vague for the audience is sometimes better. Arzu says from that time period, only Hunger Games is good YA dystopia. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Hunger Games just is good. And you know what's crazy about Hunger Games is that it's still good. You know what I mean? Like, she's published 5 of those books now. I've only started Sunrise of the Reaping, the new one, but Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes I thought was a really good book. Clarissa and I both really enjoyed it. I think that even post the both prequels thus far have been great, which is such a really interesting thing, right? Like that one series has sort of, it created a genre in the YA dystopia stuff, a genre that nobody else ever really lived up to. And then that genre died, and Suzanne Collins just pops out of hiding every couple of years, pumps out another one, and it's still a banger. It still feels present. One of the things that's different between Hunger Games and the other YA dystopias, though, is that like Divergent tries to be about eugenics, and it doesn't really criticize our world in any way. Maze Runner tries to be about finding a cure for this weird disease that came from a solar flare, and it's not really a criticism of our world in any way. And Suzanne Collins was like, fuck that shit. And I do think that this book is inspired by... There are elements of Hunger Games that I think inspired this book, right? I think that James Islington has read Hunger Games, right? That wouldn't surprise me at all. I think that they're very different. They're tonally very different. But Suzanne Collins and James Islington live in the same world of criticism, and their books are thematically in agreement on what the evils that plague our society are. And I think that's why Suzanne Collins' books are great. Because even if you don't love we've got to turn the city into the games part of the third book, which I think is the weakest part of it, the book is still thematically very poignant and very strong. And some of the twists in the third book are some of the best twists in that series, particularly in how Suzanne criticizes the people that come into power as their rebellions win, and who the people who win, what kind of people win rebellions, is really interesting, a criticism in her narrative. And I think that she does a really good job of that. But Will of the Many, The Labyrinth. This isn't good at it, but that's fine. One day, a guy shows up, and he's like, hey, I am rich. I have a daughter. She goes to the academy. Can you be friends with her? Can you guys train together? And Viss is like, fuck, man, I don't want to train with your daughter. I don't want to have to hide the labyrinth from your daughter. This is tough. What can I get out of this guy? Because Viss really, he's on it, man. He's like, what can I get out of you? He's like, I want to go to the festival. The prince is having a ball, and he's like, I want to go see the gladiator matches. I want to go see the... This book came out in 2023, so I don't think it could have inspired it. Because this book came out probably right around when they were filming Gladiator 2. But Gladiator 2 also did the, like, we're going to do boat combat in the Coliseum. I haven't seen Gladiator 2. I've only seen the trailers. But I know they did, like, boat combat in the Coliseum. And I just think it's very funny that two things had the same idea at the same time. And he's like, I want to go see the boat match in the Coliseum, the Namakea. Thank you, Embrise. Is that how they spell it in the book? One of the weird things about listening to the audiobooks, I don't actually know how a lot of these words are spelled. When Arzu wrote Alkiskor at the beginning of chat, I was like, oh, that's how they spelled Alkiskor. I thought it was AL the whole time, but it's UL. Crazy. So we get this deal where basically this will take the girl into the training using his name as Telemus to kind of push Daredevil and Alkiskor to let it happen. And he will get to go to the festival to meet the girl before they start training together. They go to the festival. Daredevil, not happy about it, but there's nothing she can do. She can't override the Telemus name. Yeah. Embry says it's an infamous thing that people have speculated about in Roman history and how it would have worked. Wait, did water combat in the Coliseum actually happen? Are you telling me that that's a real thing and not some bullshit they made up for Gladiator 2? I love that it was all underwhelming, though, because the lack of weather and really made it so bland. It's real? Oh, damn. I thought we were making up fun shit. Wait, the Romans actually managed to have internal water combat? What a waste of resources. Just set up stands on the side of the river like we do for the fucking Olympics. That's crazy. It can't have happened much, right? Are you guys telling me it happened one time and then they realized, like, this was really cool, but God, what a waste of time and energy. But they think that they modified the Coliseum afterwards because they can't work out how they could have made it watertight how it is now. Well, Embrise, it's been fucking 2,000 years. Like, the water seal probably eroded. That's crazy. Wait, the Coliseum, and like specifically the Coliseum in Rome. Isn't the Coliseum not that close to the ocean? I don't know, man. I don't know enough about Rome. I need to go there and see it for myself. That shit's crazy. I can't believe they did water combat in there. All right. Well, you learn something new every book club. So they go to the festival. The girl is curious and interested, but dismissive of his. This is where, from her father and then from her, this is where we learn about Alkiskor's brother's death being considered a suicide and what that means in this society. And we get into it. It's interesting. I do find the concept of like suicide being shameful to the family so interesting. It reminds me of how it's viewed in Japan. Not exactly the same, obviously, but the way in which Japanese culture will put the onus of a suicide on the family financially if it impacts society, right? If someone were to jump in front of a train, the impact of that can be the financial cost of that is then put on the family of that person. Arzu, thank you for those 5 gifted subs. What? Gifted subs on a nerdy solo stream? What is this? What the fuck? No, Clarus isn't here. You don't need to be nice to me, all right? I'm just doing this because I need to talk about this fucking book with someone because I like it so much. Thank you, Arzu. Fino says, how do you rate the magic school of this book compared to other magic schools in fantasy? Fino, we've only had the one scene there in the kind of, in the like medical station. I don't think I can really rate it until we get to the magic school part, which is part 2, right? We've only heard about it. It's sort of been alluded to. So I don't think that I have much of an opinion on it yet. But next week, after we've spent a week there reading about it, I think I'll be able to have more of an opinion. But right now, I don't know. I don't really have a concept of it. So they go to the Coliseum, and it is massive. It fits 100,000 people, which is bigger than most American stadiums, right? In fact, it might be bigger than all American stadiums. I know one of the biggest stadiums I've ever been to was the football stadium at the University of Oklahoma in Norman, Oklahoma, which can seat like I think 88,000. And so 100,000 is crazy. 100,000 is fucking nuts. That's significantly larger than any NFL stadium. It's significantly larger than any hockey arena. It's significantly that is a size that is just absolutely crazy. There's probably a few places on Earth that can seat 100,000, but it isn't many. And it's made possible by will. There's incredible sculptures. They get to Catan. This is Viz's first real time in Catan. He's kind of passed through it once, but he notices will is used to create these very intricate and bizarre buildings that defy kind of the normal stereotypes of architecture, because they have this magic system that can allow for architecture to be far more than even we can pull off, because it's just not worth it. Wembley is 90,000. Yeah, Wembley's big, but it's not that big. I wonder if there is a stadium on Earth that can hold over 100,000. Stadium seating 100,000. You know what's crazy? Michigan Stadium, the Michigan Wolverine Stadium, can seat 107,000. That's wild. Manchester United is building a new stadium that can seat 100,000. 136,000 cricket stadium is currently the largest in India. That makes sense. Wait, the largest stadium in the world is in North Korea? I guess when you don't have to sell tickets because you can just force people to go to events, that's possible. But yeah, I've never been to the Michigan Stadium, but 107,000 is crazy. Yeah, so it's huge. And they get there, and they find their seats. They're looking at the water. It's very cool. And Vis is like, I'm going to go walk around. And this girl's like, I'm coming with you. And he's like, I need to go take a long shit. And she's like, oh, right. Right. I forgot that people poop because I am a perfect lady and I have never pooped once in my life. All of the calories in my body get used, and then excrement disappears into the wind. I will see you when you're back, Vistelemus. And he's like, all right, deuces, literally. And he walks out in the crowd being like, Sedocia said she'd be here, but like, there's so many fucking people. How in the Sam's hell is she going to find me? And she finds him immediately. She's like, hey, come with me. And he's like, where are we going? And she's like, we're going down to the sewers. And he's like, oh, that's great. I just said I was going to go take a massive shit. And so they go down into the sewers and they meet Esteban, who is not some random new character. No, this is one of Viz's dad's biggest friends. And this guy's like, hey, Thiago. And he's like, shut the fuck up. Oh, I am Viz. And Esteban's like, yeah, I'm Esteban, my guy. We know each other. I know you. Dude, I changed your fucking diapers. I spoon-fed you fucking mashed up peas when you were a baby. You think I can't use your real fucking name? And he's like, shit. Esteban, how you doing, brother? Hi. Hello. Cool. Spanish-esque names for Seuss. Oh, yes, absolutely. All Spanish-esque names for Seuss. Thiago, Esteban. Yeah. There's definitely, I know I said a lot about the Greek stuff later, but their naming scheme is very clearly Spanish leaning. Leaning? They're not leaning. They're just Spanish. They're not even Spanish-esque names. They're just Spanish names. You can kind of take the esque off that. You know what I mean? And he's like, hey, man, do you want to be a terrorist? And Viz is like, no. No, I don't want to be a terrorist. And he's like, shit. See, okay, cool. Well, we're gonna take some of your blood and we're gonna give you this pencil, and this pencil is gonna protect you. And Viz is like, from what? And Esteban's like, nothing. It's not gonna protect you from anything. Anyway, happy September 11th, my friend. And Viz is like, why? What does September 11th have to do with anything? And so Viz leaves and he goes back to his seat, having turned down the call to adventure for the second time. I reacted to this chapter. Arzu commissioned it. It's very cool. The biremes and triremes take to the field, and these sailing ships start attacking each other. And I was like, damn, I guess Arzu just wanted me to listen to a totally normal combat chapter between two sides on a war as these boats all just shoot each other with spears and arrows. The people on these ships are mostly prisoners who are destined for the sappers, who are hoping to end up in a position where they get a pardon, where they impress enough that they are freed from a lifetime on the sappers. And I was really hoping some people were going to get pardoned, but the ground started to move on its own, much like the labyrinth that Viz has been practicing on. And a walkway appears in the middle of this ocean combat, and everybody just kind of stops what they're doing and is like, what the fuck is that? Oh, the hierarchy has built a new challenge to make this year's games the best games ever, which doesn't really make sense because technically the people in the biremes and triremes are reenacting a real battle that happened in the past. So I don't know why the hierarchy would interject to like change it. If that's not what happened, because it's not a reenactment anymore, then you're just fucking gladiators. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because Esteban just walks out on this platform and everyone is like, who the fuck is that guy? And he's like, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my country. Prepare to die. And he doesn't really say that. He's like, hi, my name's Esteban. I am the leader of the Anguis. You are all bad people. You cede your will to even worse people. You deserve what's about to happen to you. And then he holds out his hand and starts murdering everybody. And I don't mean like one at a time. He's like 10,000 people dead, 10,000 people dead, 10,000 people dead. And then people hop on the platform. The Namaki jump off the ships. Esteban is like, Namaki, you guys should be fighting on my side. All these prisoners, we want to free you. We want you to come. The hierarchy's fucking you. Come join our side. And they're like, well, but if we kill you, we get a pardon. And the system is a system. So we're going to jump. They're running down the platform. And he's like, oh my God, there's all these people on this stone walkway. They're going to come kill me. Holds up his hand. Boom. They're all vaporized instantly. And then suddenly, I'm like, oh, Arzu didn't want me to react to this chapter because of the cool water combat. She wanted me to lose my fucking mind as the terrorist attack happens. And it is everything Viz didn't want the Anguis to be. It's everything he warned them not to be, because they're not going to make any allies deliberately attacking civilians. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't an attack on the military. Most of the military people find this too boring to show up to. Right? The students of the academy don't, like, the girl, Echo or whatever her name is. She is like, I've been, it's fine. I've done it. I don't go anymore. There aren't important people here. This is the masses. This is the distraction the government uses to keep the general people from doing crazy shit, right? Keep them distracted, give them fun shit, keep them engaged in something else. And Esteban is just murdering innocents. And yes, I understand the argument that like they're not innocents because they're ceding their will to people who are committing atrocities. I get that. But the people in the hierarchy aren't going to see it that way. The people in the hierarchy aren't going to see the Anguis as saviors or rebels. They're going to see them as terrorists. They murder like 40,000 people. Her name is Water? Oh. Aqua? Fino says, I mean, this chapter is morally and philosophically challenging. Oh, yeah, it's great. And Bryce says, give them people who are worse off than them so they can feel better about themselves. That's true too, right? That's one of the dangers of being a terrorist, is that you make the empire seem righteous. Non-violent, and look, I'm not saying there's never time for violence in a revolution. Y'all know me. I'm not that guy. However, you do have to be careful that you do not seem more unreasonable than the people you're fighting, right? It is really hard to win that way. You have to provide the people you're fighting with and for a vision of a future that is better, and not just a vision that is worse. It's and now obviously that's not 100% true, because the Taliban, I mean, technically have won, right? Afghanistan is theirs, and they're running it horribly. It's a goddamn nightmare. So maybe I'm wrong about that, but Amboss says, so Nerdy, got any revolutions planned for later this year? Hey man, Mark Carney won. Canada, we got our guy. All right, Canada's doing okay. I'm hopeful that other people get their guys as well. I hope that people vote. I just hope that people vote and participate in democracy. And I'm not going to say anything on stream that would incriminate me in anything, because I'm on video right now. But I've been really happy with Mark Carney and what he's been doing so far in Canada. I feel like has been a good prime minister, and I'm great. I'm great with it because I couldn't fucking stand Trudeau. So I feel like we got a massive upgrade. We went from a guy that I genuinely just never wanted to see on television ever again to a guy who doesn't show up on TV very often, and when he does, I'm like, damn, that is a reasonable political decision to make. I'm glad you're doing it that way. Finofika says, Ukraine resistance is where weak actually fights properly against empire without resorting to terrorism. Hey, look, I think that it is really easy to be on Zelensky's side, right? I think that it's one of the things that Ukraine has that's really going for it is the manner in which they have resisted. Now, granted, Ukraine is a country. It's very different in that Ukraine is a system of its own, and that is a system against a larger system. And, you know, it is also very beneficial, I think, to Ukraine that it's President Zelensky, right? Not Prime Minister. But I think that they are fortunate that they, at the time, had a professional actor and comedian, right? Not because he's faking it, but because I think that Zelensky has a level of charisma that some politicians don't have, that has allowed him to appear a certain way to the global population that has been, I think, very successful. I don't know if the stomach for that ongoing war has been large enough for the demand for it, for the Ukrainians' need, but yeah, there is a lot to at that. Anyway, Arzu says the fact that the Anguis use the magic system to do this makes them hypocrites. Ooh, is that a spoiler, Arzu, for me? Is that a spoiler for me? Because I'm not 100% sure that this is the same magic, right? So Arzu, I guess you would know better than I would. So I'm not trying to read too much into your comment, but part of me thinks that this isn't necessarily will, right? I know that Sudocho is ceding to Esteban, but this power feels like so much grander than the hierarchy that I was thinking this might. So one of the things we haven't talked about at all, because it isn't really important to the book yet, but this comes up here, is there is a cataclysm in this world, and the world shifted at some point. And so there's like pre-cataclysm and post-cataclysm, and the audience of... Sorry, no, I'm trying to do two things at once. I just said the word that I was typing. I'm just trying to pull up for Phenoficus here. Oh, I can only pull up my top 10 on the phone. Here, one second. I'm going to pull this up for Phenoficus because I'm also curious how many Ukrainians watch our stuff. I was under the impression that maybe they had discovered something from like pre-Cataclysm that was allowing them to be able to do this. That wasn't necessarily a will thing, partially because we haven't seen people just straight up like shoot will out of their hands as a weapon. And maybe we do see that later in the book, but it does seem like the willpower has to be sort of channeled through things and isn't something that you just kind of like shoot like a gun. Okay, well, Phoenoficus, I will say this. The Ukraine makes up for 0.2% of our views on the main channel, Nerdy Nightly. And we've had over 1,000 views in the Ukraine in the past 28 days. So certainly not our biggest. Obviously, the United States is our biggest audience. But, you know, over 1,000 views in the last 28 days from the Ukraine. So you're not the only one. That's cool. Yeah, so I do think the power that's being used for this terrorist attack is pre-Cataclysm. I do wonder if Esteban needed to have people... It's all you. You've watched 1,000 Nerdy Nightly videos in the last month. I do wonder if the seeding is necessary for Esteban's body to be able to handle this much power. Like, so Esteban kills tens of thousands of people with his just shooting shit out of his hands. Vis very smartly figures out that he's trying to kill as many people as possible. So he leads Eco to the stand that the first attack hit, where there's a bunch of bodies. They climb through the viscera and gore. It's described so well, but it is awful. The smell. James Islington likes to describe smells a lot, but only when they're just the worst. And so they climb through all of that, and he leads her to the sewer that he met Esteban in earlier to help her escape. He gets her out, and he's like, I gotta go back. And she's like, are you fucking kidding? He's like, no, this is the right thing to do, but you go to safety. He goes back. He, assuming the protection on the pencil that he has is going to save him, he goes back covered in shit, literal shit, gets up on the platform, walks out into the middle of the ocean, goes up to Esteban, and Esteban is like, fuck this. We could have done this together. Suddenly he has visions of this dark pyramid. Like it's, that's a spoiler. Oh, I just wanted to make a really fun reference and I can't because it's a spoiler. But he has visions of this dark pyramid. As if he's like, and this is why I don't think Esteban's dead, because Esteban seems to be phasing in and out of dimensions or something, and Vis sees these other dimensions for a second, but then Vis holds his stylus up to Esteban's throat, and Esteban is like, here's the thing. Sometimes you gotta be a terrorist. Grabs the stylus, shoves Vis's hand in the stylus up into his own brain, and dies. For those of you listening to the podcast, I'm air quoting. I don't think he's dead. I don't. I think that he is alive in another dimension, and his body in this dimension is dead. That's one thought. Or he has so much will in him at the time that he's able to survive this, but he needs Vis to be a hero for his future plans, and so he allows for Vis to look like a hero by killing him, even though Vis does not want to. Vis has never killed anyone before, despite, trying to at the very beginning of this section. And they end up in this weird spot where Vis is cradling the body of his father's friend that he is responsible for the death of. But he's also saved all of these people that he acknowledges are his enemies. But he knows it was the right thing to do because they were innocents. And like, if I wasn't already 100% fucking hooked on this book, do you think I would be less hooked now? Do you think I would be less in? Fuck no. 100% in. All the goddamn way. What a morally fucking delicious conundrum we end up in. And so, for the third time in this book, we end up with Vis waking up from being unconscious. The first time, the morning after he brawls, He's only asleep for a night, but he gets woken up by one of the snot-nosed kids being like, you need to come help us get adopted. The second time, he's out for like, I think like a week and a half or something after the transvect attack. And this time, he's out for, I think, 48 hours. And at some point, we do need to check Vis for brain damage. Because you shouldn't be this beat up and unconscious as often as he is. It's not good for you. You know what I mean? It's one of the things about like movies where they like knock people out all the time by like hitting them in the head. That's really bad in real life. You cannot get knocked unconscious all the time. It does affect your brain. Getting concussed like that affects your brain for a while. You can't wake up from just getting like a blow to the back of the head and be fine. No, just a damn second time, I thought. No, Arzu, I'm pretty sure that he gets, I think it's night when he gets knocked out in the arena. Or it's like, evening. I think he's unconscious that night, the entire next day, and then the entire next night. And then so I think he wakes up the morning a full day later, but it's like, or it would be like 36 or, 38 hours. You know what I mean? Like, I think that I think he misses a full day, but the arena is in the evening and he wakes up like on day 3. So he's out for like maybe not exactly 48 hours. Like it's not like 8 p.m. to 8 p.m., but it's like 8 p.m. to like 11 a.m. with a day in between, right? He built a tolerance for brain damage by being kicked in the arena while living in the orphanage. He's fine. So you don't actually build a tolerance to brain damage. After the transvect, a day, a week for the arena. Oh, do I have those backwards in my head? Okay. I have them backwards in my head. Thank you, Arzu. I appreciate that. So he wakes up and he is doing the dang thing. He is getting interrogated by everybody again, and he is having to lie about the Sedocia element of everything again. And if him and Sedocia end up in this book dating or something, won't be surprised at all, because it does feel like they are, terrorists to lovers. That classic trope. Everyone's favorite romantasy trope, terrorists to lovers. It's really big in book talk right now. Jesus. And so they all interrogate him. A member of the CIA comes in and like takes his blood, takes his hair, takes his toenails, really dives into his whole body, trying to figure out the truth. And that interrogation happens. It's also very confusing. And Vis loses a week. Right. He's unconscious a week this time because he loses a week of training, and he only gets 2 last weeks with Daredevil in order to prepare himself for school. But by the end of it, he's ready to go. And that's kind of where we leave off. It's damn good. You can see that happening. I mean, the book talk trend, it wouldn't surprise me at all. The shit that people read on Book Talk is genuinely concerning. I don't want to get on my soapbox about Book Talk, because like, read what you love and enjoy life, and like, we get so little time on this planet. Like, do the thing. The problem I have with Book Talk is the way they talk about books is so depressing to me. It doesn't really matter if the book is good if the like relationship in it hits a quota of repeated ideas. Right? Like it's like, well, I want it to be enemies to lovers, slow burn. And it's like, oh, is the prose good? Oh, I don't care about that. Okay. Is the plot interesting? I don't care about that. Is the world building consistent? Oh, that doesn't matter. Is the smut well written? Yeah, it is. There's not enough of it though. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's porn. You're listening to 20 hours of porn. It's just it's fascinating to me. It really it is a trend that I find deeply concerning. And not even because I think that it's bad, right? But because like I think that it's incentivizing authors to not try that hard because the audience that is reading their books um the audience that is reading the books doesn't care, so like why put effort in, right? Like the audience literally wants to read tags for your story like it's a fucking fan fiction website, and they're gonna read it based on the tags, and if it has the tags they want, then if it has the tags that they want, then they are going to be happy no matter what, right? So why would you put more effort in when you can pump out 6 of them a year, they're bestseller? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just kind of is incentivizing the market to become flooded with short and mediocre crap that's just satisfying a percentage of the audience that actually does buy books. So I do get that. It's just it's weird. It's a weird system. Phenoficus says, "You are so charitable to this book." I don't think I'm being charitable to this book at all. I wonder how it works for you. Is nitpicking of yours is always fair and square, or it depends on your preference? Interesting. I understand that I nitpick things. I do. But that's also just I don't view myself as being charitable to this book. And I guess if you don't like it, you would see my view on as being charitable. I think this book is very well written. I don't think that's a charitable description of it. I actually just think I think that this book is very successful. I think that it tells the story that it's trying to tell very well. I think that it is thematically very resonant. I think that its criticisms of modern society are handled, like I said in this earlier, like it's not ham-fisted. It is just so natural to the world that James Islington created. And I feel like the character points of view are distinguished and different. I think that there are characters who have different levels of emotional intelligence. Not all the characters feel the same. They all feel very different and very alive. The characters feel three-dimensional. The world feels three-dimensional. I feel like James Islington really understands what he's trying to say, and I think that he's saying it very effectively. And so I think that when I'm being charitable to a book, it's when like Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, I felt like I was being charitable by trying to enjoy it. I felt like I was trying to find a way to enjoy the elements of it that are good, despite the fact that I don't think as a whole it is very good, right? And so maybe that's where the nitpicking comes from. Is I'm trying. I'm genuinely with things where I'm not enjoying them as much. I'm trying to find the art in it, and sometimes I'm trying to figure out how it could have been better, right? But with this book, I don't think I'm being charitable. I just think it's really good, right? I guess it's my preference problem because I had an issue with your nitpicking for Way of Kings, which is my favorite Stormlight. I gotta move on. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I definitely nitpicked Way of Kings. I think that's fair to say. I think that is absolutely fair to say, right? I think that I struggled more with Way of Kings. I think that Stormlight got a lot better post Way of Kings. I think that Brandon Sanderson in Way of Kings is trying to figure out how to make the world as big as he wants to make it. And I did not enjoy him figuring that out as much as other people did. And I think I think maybe some people say that's unfair, but I think that's a fair criticism or a fair way to talk about my process of reading the book. I don't think the Sanderlanche in that book is as tight and effective as other books that he's written. I do think that Words of Radiance is much better than Way of Kings. And I think that Oathbringer is as damn close to a perfect fantasy book as he's written, right? I think that that's a series where what I felt like were some stumbles in Way of Kings in terms of pacing and in terms of keeping the points of view kind of together in a way that made it feel like a congealed narrative. He figures it out in the next book, and then he kind of masters it in Oathbringer. I think Oathbringer is an incredible book, right? And so I love the Stormlight Archive as a series. I'm really enjoying Rhythm of War. I thought this week's reading was really fantastic. We're going to talk about that on Friday. I really enjoyed that. I don't think that Way of Kings is as strong a start as I think that this is. I would put the first third of Way of Kings against this, and I would take the first third of Hierarchy of Will of the Many over Way of Kings. Just for my taste. I think that James Islington creates a society with problems and then shows how those problems really affect people. And I think that Brandon Sanderson creates problems for his characters and then doesn't always follow through on how those problems reflect the society at large. And when those problems aren't what he's interested in anymore, he kind of drops them, right? And it's even my problem with Oathbringer and Rhythm of War, right? I think that the racism that he introduces in Way of Kings is interesting. It just kind of is not that important later on. He kind of drops it. And so, yeah, I did nitpick Way of Kings. It's not my favorite Stormlight book. It's not my favorite Brandon Sanderson book. I think it is very good. It's very well written. Like, it's certainly not a bad book by any means. But I also think it's a little bit scatterbrained and it's not as strong as the later books in that series are. I think that he figured out how to write a Stormlight book by writing Way of Kings. And then he wrote a really good Stormlight book in Words of Radiance with a couple of things that, aren't my favorite. And there's hours talking about that. And then Oathbringer is remarkable. And even with the slowdown of part 4 in that section, I think that Oathbringer is a remarkable book that I genuinely love. So I don't know. I don't think I'm being charitable to this book by praising it the way that I am. I really do find it to be very my cup of tea. It politically agrees with my version of politics and my worldview. Will of the Many is a book that is, it is interested in the world in a way that I'm interested in the world. Right. And that does make it a little bit easier for me to not nitpick because there aren't politics in the book that I disagree with. In Stormlight or in some of other Brandon Sanderson works, I don't think that they agree with my worldview as much. And so I find things in them to criticize because I think that the messaging in them goes against how I think that people should be treated and how I think that we should view the world. And so I'm critical of their version of hope. I'm critical of their version of Law and Order. That doesn't mean that they're bad or that they're poorly written. It's just that I'm going to have more of a criticism of them versus Will of the Many, where reading it felt like a fantasy version of someone explaining a worldview that is very similar to mine, of the criticisms of modern day capitalism that I find very resonant. This book was like holding up a tuning fork next to the tune of my drum. Or not my drum, but a tuning fork next to my trumpet. And I didn't need to tune my trumpet for this. You know what I mean? That valve stayed exactly where I like to keep it. Whereas sometimes with other books, I have to tune my trumpet in order to be in tune with the tuning fork. And sometimes a tuning fork is just a little bit too far away for me to catch the tune. Some conductors conduct in a way where I can never quite get on their stick, But then other conductors, it feels like I'm never off of it. And sometimes I do feel like I'm retuning myself to a Brandon Sanderson book. But this felt like I was just perfectly in sync almost from the very beginning. I don't know if it's the right place to ask, but what is your worldview exactly? Oh, interesting. It's a very wide question. I am of the mind that we are politically and culturally really, really small potatoes here at the end of book club. I am of the mind that we are we are morally more intelligent than we have ever been in the history of humanity. But we exist with an apathy that is endemic to the majority of our society now that has led us to become apathetic to those moral advancements. That we have become so aware of the morality of the world and of what can be right, but having that knowledge hoisted upon us has been so destructive to our comfort zones as individualist societies that we are not able to live up to it because it is too much to think about. And so we have become, as a society, somewhat aggravated by the idea of moral advancement. And in that, we have pushed into more and more secluded and individualist views that are spurned by the rise of social media and by the rise of the internet. We've secluded ourselves deeper and further away from community. And with the lack of community, we are struggling as people to find a way to empathize with one another. And that lack of empathy is leading to a multiplication of the apathy of, moral advancement to this place where the majority of people truly want to get their own and not have to think about how it impacts others or how other people's lives impact theirs. We want to live in a world where we make our bag and we survive and we have a lot, despite the fact that that takes away from others, right? And my worldview right now is that I've become somewhat nihilistic in my view that the majority of people don't care enough to move forward with the incredible advancements that we have discovered. And I do this because I believe in community. And I believe in the idea of bringing people together over the things that we love and the things that we hate and the things that we want to love and want to hate. And that I think that by being honest, but also empathetic with people online and by creating a community online, I am doing my part in building up seed of something that has a connective tissue that could become something larger. And that if everyone were to be comfortable engaging in community, we could build a better world, because I think that you can only build a better world in groups. I do not think that individuals can build a world on their own. I do not believe in the idea that any individual person can make anything better. It has to be done in units. It has to be done. And sadly, that is where there's elements of the hierarchy in this book that I do understand the feeling of. There is something inherently community building about these pyramids because you have to be together. The people who do Herbalife, which is a stain on our society, let's be honest, but the people who do it believe they're a part of something and they're uplifted by the community of it. Now, they're also being taken advantage of the community of it, right? But the element of that community is being twisted by something like Herbalife. And I am hoping that we are, in our very small way, and in what, tiny way that we can, we're building a community that isn't taking advantage of anybody. And we are desperately trying not to take advantage of anybody. I know that there's a lot of ways, and one of the things that's problematic about that is that we're heavily monetized, right? You can commission reactions, you can be a member, you can get more content by paying for it, right? I understand that there are ways in which we monetize our community, and it is our job to monetize our community in a way. I understand that argument, which is why we desperately try to make almost everything free, if possible. You can get it early if you want to pay for it. We don't ask you to pay for it. It will still go up if you don't pay for it. You know what I mean? We try and make as much free content as we can and hope that it is good enough that people see a reason to pay for it. But I really am desperate in my life to never produce things that are out of people's reach, right? I am noodling away at a book. One novella I have to write for charity, a book that I actually would like to get published one day. And there is a part of me that scares me about putting it out because I don't want it to be too expensive. I don't want it to be something that people can't afford. And there's a part of me that likes the idea of self-publishing it because then I can take a cut on how much I make to make it as affordable for other people as possible. Maybe. I don't know. But at the same time, I do want to have value. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a weird thing where, like, I do think my work has value. But at the same time, I don't want to take advantage of people. It's a tough world we live in, man. It is a tough world we live in. And it's what I think I agree so much with this book about is Viss's struggle with how tough it is to live in the world of the hierarchy. Because there are elements of it that are working, right? There are elements of it that are keeping people safe, kind of. The Anguis aren't necessarily right in the way that they're handling things. It is a moral question that he's going to have to struggle with in the same way that I struggle every time I open Patreon and post content there early for patrons. Obviously not to the same level, but there is a part of me that's like, is this right? Now, I have the benefit of no one is forced to pay for my Patreon, right? I have the benefit of if people have signed up for patrons, they think it's of value. They are the ones making that decision. And over 750 people are currently like, this is valuable to my life. Well, actually 749. My stepdad signed up for the Patreon day one, has never consumed any content on it. And I know that he knows he's still a member, but every month my stepfather's account gets charged $20 for our Patreon. And I've told him to turn it off. Like, I don't need my parents to give me money. But I don't know if it's that my stepdad doesn't know how to sign back in to, like, turn it off, or if he just genuinely doesn't give a shit. But I do find it funny that the number one patron on Patreon, because he's been there the longest, is my stepfather. And also the tier's $5, but he, like, signed up at a $20 tier that doesn't exist anymore. And so, because we were like, when we first started Patreon, we were like, oh, we'll have every $10 be a different, it was too complicated. We are like, we'll just have one tier. But I do love that the number one patron on Patreon is my stepfather. Anyway, my worldview is that we need to be kinder to one another. That we need to be more generous and more empathetic. And that we need to realize that quickly because things are falling apart. Fino, I wrote a huge relatable answer about problems online with my circles from teenage years online becoming fully unempathetic and making fun of any liberal or humanism thing, but it's too much for chat. Yeah, and maybe this was the wrong thing to put in this podcast because this is a will of many, but I love talking about this stuff. I love talking about what I'm worried about, and because I think that by sharing it, we become more aware of our feelings. I think that we understand our feelings deeper by sharing them with other people. Again, I do genuinely believe in community. I love our Discord, right? I love this channel. I love the Nerdy Nightly. I love that it feels so much like a community. You know, there are some people who make content who don't know their audience at all. And I feel very grateful that if you asked me to name 100 chatters that I think that have been around long enough that I have some sense of them, I think I could. I think I could easily name 100 people that are a part of this community regularly that I am grateful for. Not because of the number or because of the views, but because of, you know, the way in which, because these channels are so much about experiencing media and themes and stories together. I just am so I'm sometimes overwhelmed by the fact that there are people who enjoy this with us, right? Arzu, I'm really bad with names. I'm really good with handles because I read them over and over and over again. I don't actually know anyone's real name. I will remember your Instagram handle. I will not remember your name. How many of the names begin with S? A lot. A lot of you. It's a very common start. But yeah, I don't know. I feel very lucky. In a world that I think has become very unempathetic and very callous, I feel like we have built a community of people that I think are genuinely caring, and that we have found people online who, partially because we ban everybody who isn't, but who are good people. And I am very grateful for that. We've had to kick some people from the community. We've had our fair share of scandals over the years, but we're 5 years into doing this, and I actually like being in my own Discord, which I know for a fact some of my content creators cannot say the same. I don't know. I just think, if you want to know the truth about my worldview, the reason why I agree with the will of the many is that capitalism is a pyramid scheme, and with all of the capital rushing up, the people at the bottom are left with so little that life is slowly becoming harder and harder for the poor, but they do the brunt of the work. And I think that it should be the opposite. I'm not saying that rich people shouldn't have great things. They should. You know what I mean? If you build something that employs a bunch of people, you should be able to live the lifestyle you want, right? Up until the point where you do not pay your workers a fair wage, and then I think that you should have nothing. There's a reason why the people that work for us do not make minimum wage. You know what I mean? We pay our editor far more than we probably need to. We could probably find a cheaper editor. We could make more money by hiring people off Fiverr, or finding some editor in the Philippines that we pay peanuts to, like a lot of other people do. I'm not going to do that. I pay a person who I have a genuine relationship, who lives here in Canada, who I love, and I care about him greatly, and I pay him significantly more because I want him to have a good life. And every time we employ anyone, that is going to be the same. Arzu, I mod for you in Clars because I genuinely respect your opinions, and you just outlined why, and I appreciate the shit out of it. You know what I mean? I would love to get to a point where we have paid mods. Like that is a dream. It's the math of that is so unfeasible right now, but like that one day, you know what I mean? One day with this channel, I hope to be big enough that everyone who does any labor for us is paid. Right now, we're not quite there yet, and I am sorry to our mods for that. I do appreciate you all greatly, regardless of that. We do what we can. Arzu obviously gets a free audiobook reaction per book for the work that she does. We do try and find a way to make this worth it, but Practicing Incarnate says, for what it's worth, this is one of the very few places I, as an introverted person, am actually comfortable speaking on occasionally, and I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot to me. Especially because, when I was a kid, I didn't really have people. I had community because I was a good singer and because I was a good goalie. But I didn't really have friends. I had people, I had coworkers. I just wasn't work at the time, right? I had people that I were on my hockey team, and I had people that were in my dance class. It wasn't until after I got diagnosed with autism, and after I kind of did the work after getting diagnosed with autism, that I started to actually have real friendships. And so when I was young, like, the internet was the only place where I really had friends, because I was able to lie about who I was so that they would like me. And it's not surprising to me now that the community that I built is so online, given that that's where I found community when I was younger. This got weirdly personal. Will of the Many is a really good book, hey? It's a really good book. I like it a lot. I'm so excited for Viz to go to school. I'm so excited to explore the school and everything that happens there. I'm so excited. I'm just excited to read this. It's such a dark and dreary world, but I'm stoked. I really enjoy it. Is 2-part series or 3-part? The book club is going to be in 3 parts. So next week will be part 2 of the book, and then the third week will be part 3, and that'll be the end of that. The following week will be Onyx Storm. The week after that, I don't know if there will be a book club on Wednesday. Wednesday book clubs might only be this month, and then I don't know. This schedule's a lot, so I don't know if we're going to do this every week. But next week will be part 2, and then it's crazy. So much book club. We'll be back Friday. We're doing chapters 33 to interval 6. Very good reading this week. I've read everything except Interval 6. Clarissa and I need to react to Interval 6, but I've read everything else. Very good reading. The Rhythm of War is part 2 of Rhythm of War. Banging. I think that last week I had some, like, I don't know how I'm feeling about Rhythm of War. I think that if we hadn't slowed down the reading and if we'd been, like, chugging along, I think I wouldn't have felt that. I do think that this book it starts off really strong, and then there's sort of like this like lull to get into what this book is about. But once it starts, man, it starts. Very excited to talk about that on Friday. What else? Tomorrow is Thursday. We're going to be looking at houses because the house that we wanted, probably not going to get it, unfortunately. We found the perfect house, but someone put in an offer and some shenanigans happened. We didn't get a chance to counteroffer. It sucks. But we're going to be looking at houses tomorrow, so no live. We'll be live Friday, though, with Rhythm of War. We'll be live Saturday. I'm going to be live playing Claire Obscure some more. And also Last Yoke City, the one-shot starring Dice Cream Sandwich and Quincy's Tavern will go live. Sunday, more Baldur's Gate Evil Run. And then next week, that's book club. I hope that was a fun conversation. While I do the outro, can you guys say, was solo book club worth it, or after Will of the Many, should we just only do it when it's both of us? Was this enough of a book club to feel worthy of the channel, I guess is my question. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you don't, hit the dislike button. Leave mean comments down below because the algorithm god is hungry and we must feed her. This episode, that algorithm goddess is Sedocia. She's got powers, and I want to know, I want it explained. This is fun. I'm at Nerdy Nightly everywhere across the internet. Oh, if you're on the podcast feed, please rate 5 stars. Leave a review on the podcast feeds, either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcast, about how you felt about this. We have a bunch of reviews, but not a lot of comments. So thank you to everyone who reviewed us 5 stars. I think the podcast is at a 4.4 on Apple Podcasts, which is very kind. But some 5-star reviews and some explanations of what you feel about it would be great. Chat says, we are not worthy of your greatness. Lol. Marius, you are worthy of everything in this life, and I hope that you have plenty of joy. Excelente, I enjoyed it. I mean, I guess asking the people who stayed through 2.5 hours is probably, you guys are all probably gonna sit next to me. Fino Fika says, I still propose a Claris cutout next to you. Maybe? I don't know. I feel like it'd make for funny shorts if it just cuts to that, but didn't you move already thrice in the last 4 years? Amboss, yes. 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 Yes, we have. Yes. We keep moving. I know. It's a problem. That's why we need to buy a house, Amboss. This house, we thought we were going to stay in this house for a while. We did. The plan was to live here for at least 2 years. When we moved in, we didn't know that this house wasn't insulated. And so in the winter, it got so cold that we would wake up and we would be able to see our breath. The pipes froze, and so we couldn't use our main kitchen in the dead of winter. We had to get water from our downstairs kitchen. And look, we're in a place where we're in a house that has 2 kitchens. We're not because it's that big. This house at some point was renovated to sell as 2 separate units, but they couldn't get people to rent the unit separately because the configuration's weird. And so they just put a second kitchen and hoping to have 2 people rent it instead of 1. Anyway, so this house is just not, we thought we were going to live here much longer than we are going to. This house has more problems. It's flooded twice. They think they fixed the flooding problem, but we don't know. The house has problems, and so we're just not going to stay here as long as we were hoping to. One house we left, the house that when we were living in Brampton, we left it because the cigarette smoke was coming through the walls so bad that I was violently sick. I'm allergic to cigarettes, and so I was sick all the time. We've had to move for some reasons, and we're hoping that this is the last move for the while. We are hoping that this is the last time we move for a minute. We want to buy a house and we want to live there for several years because we are as tired of moving as I'm sure you guys are of hearing about us moving. The audiobook reactions for this week are going to be chapter 33, commissioned by Alec M88, and chapter 38, commissioned by Kano. thank you guys for commissioning chapters of this. That's so cool. I genuinely did not expect anyone to commission a chapter for me to audiobook reaction by myself. So I am very, very grateful. Phenoficus says, is splitting channels working for you? It feels we would have more viewers and talker on main channel. I somehow missed whole branching out and rhythm of war. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I think that the branching out is going to take some time. I think that a year from now, this channel is going to be very healthy. It is just going to take time. I do think it is better for the main channel that this channel is here, that we move book club. I think that the long term of it will be great. I understand what you mean. It is a little bit slower right now, but that's just because the effort has to be put in here to make it worth it. And we're going to do that. But yeah, YouTube goes like, hey, this book club is perfect for this channel. And I don't get the messages from YouTube that are like, hey, this book club is not right for the Nerdy Nightly every week, which is great. So I'm happy with the branch out. I think the separate channels is for the long-term benefit. Short-term, maybe it's a little bit slower, maybe, but we're gonna put in the effort here. I've got some other videos I want to do on here. I have some ideas for some videos for this channel that will be not lives and more videos to help bring in some subscribers and stuff, let people know that this exists. We're going to be slowly doing that. I want to review some shorter books that aren't going to be book clubs. So those are going to go up here. Those book reviews would never have gone on the main channel because they wouldn't perform well enough. They would kill the algorithm over there. Whereas because this channel is so live focused, I'm not really worried about the algorithm of videos as much. So I can kind of review books that I would have read and just kind of like mentioned offhand, but never made a video about over there. And so, yeah, I long term, I'm really excited that this channel exists, but I understand what you're saying. Right now, it does feel a little bit slower. Book club, Rhythm of War book club, I felt like has felt great. And so, yeah, already got specific short books in mind. Yeah, I'm reading What Doesn't Break. It's a Critical Role book that's like Laudna's backstory. So I'm going to do a review of that. Tusk Love is coming up soon. We'll probably do a book club on that in July. But that's one that I'm excited to do a review of. There is a book called Legends and Lattes that I have read the first couple chapters of. I want to do a review of. I'm not going to do a full like live on Legends and Lattes though. You know, stuff like that. So there's some other books. Professor McGuinea Pig sent us his books. I think I'm going to try and do a video on those. Any Joe Abercrombie plans? I don't know. The problem with Joe Abercrombie is I think that it might be worth it to book club Joe Abercrombie, but I don't know if it is. So there's some series that are big enough that we aren't reading them because we might book club them after the Cosmere, right? Because we have like 5 Cosmere books left, I think, 5 or 6. And then, you know, like I really want to read Dungeon Crawler Carl, but it might be worth it to do book clubs on those. I really want to read, we keep saying we're going to keep doing Cradle. I want to keep doing Cradle, but like, where are we going to fit that in? I said the magic words. What are the magic words, Clarus? So it's just tough. It's just tough because like there's stuff that we might want to save for actual book club. And so Dungeon Crawler Carl, I really want to read it. I don't want to start it right now when like I'm doing 2 book clubs a week. I literally cannot add another book club to the week. You know, my brain is too full as it is. So yeah, that's just kind of where it's at. There are some things. Discworld obviously is one of those things where it's like it feels worthy of covering it like book club, but I just can't add it right now because there's too much going on. Even Will of the Many felt like too much, but because it was only 1 book right now, and the next book's coming out this year, and I thought the next book had just come out, but I learned today that next book's coming out this year. This felt like something that I could kind of handle because it's just, you know, 1 or 2 books. I'll be very excited to cover the second one in November. But more like one-off series books that are just really good. Those are the kinds of things that I think that I kind of want to cover like that. Things that aren't series. So doing a book club for one-offs doesn't feel very worth it. Obviously, Kushiels is going to come back. That'll probably come back after Onyx Storm. So yeah, anyway, lots of book stuff. Very interested. Dungeon Crawler Carl with Claris. That is my hope. I don't want to do it by myself. I will if she's like, I'm just not going to do it. Or if she starts reading it and doesn't like it, obviously. But Joseph, thank you for joining the Nerds Radiant. Oh my God, Claris is fucking in chat catching me missing things. Sorry, I was in my own head there for a minute. Joseph, thank you for being a nerd and a radiant. All the things. Collect your spren at the door and make sure you feed and water them, but don't feed them after midnight or they become void spren. Anyway, that is the end of book club for today. I hope that you like Will of the Many as much as I do. I love this book. I'm very into it, and I'm very excited to keep reading it. We'll be back next week with part 2. And get out of here, you prudes. It's time for me to talk about sex, baby. Time to talk about you and me, because it's Smut Corner. Do you think anyone's tried to jack off with the gauntlet? Like they're like jerking it and watching like a giant stone pillar bounce up and down as they just like jork it with the gauntlet. I could see someone like, I could see that happening. I really could. I also think Sedocia has tried to entice Vis in a number of ways. She has not yet tried to seduce him. And if she does try to seduce him later in these books, I could see it feeling to Vis like they have a genuine connection, but she's actually just trying to get him to be a terrorist by using sex. Which is such a crazy sentence. We're going to end book club there. Thank you to our mods. Thank you, everyone. I will see you all on Friday with Rhythm of War. Do something nerdy tonight.